if you come back to 2020, Joe Biden would like that to be a little higher. We're at 84% right now. We believe most of election day voting, today voting here. So we're waiting for early vote as well. That might help Joe Biden. If Democrats disproportionately banked early in Miami-Dade, we'll see as we go through. You move up to Broward, this is more what Joe Biden wants it to look like. But again, see that at 16% right there, 75%. You go back to the comparison, 66%. So he's overperforming at the moment Hillary Clinton by percentage.
We go in Florida. If you go statewide.
So you pull back out. And again, this is going to be a roller coaster by 28,000 votes, right? And so this is what we're going to do. And what's happening? This is again, trademark for this president. Look at the smaller counties, right? You see all that filling in red? Not a lot of people live here. You look at it, it's 184 to 83 there. You come over here, 584 to 207. You think at home, well, that's only a few votes. When you have 10, 15, 20 counties, you got 200 here, 20 there, 1,000 there. That's how Donald Trump gets his math in a lot of states with these smaller counties like this. Interesting,
look at this, Jeff. 41% of the estimated vote in Florida is now in. Look at how close it is.
Florida's close. That is not breaking news. That part is not breaking news. But it's incredible because just as you were here last time it flipped, you were here this time it flipped. We expect Florida to flip. So you're looking at key things. Number one, for the president, that Collier County is coming in for Trump. That's a good thing for the president. That's what he needs. The southwest part of the state tends to be more conservative, 77%. But look how low we are here. So we got a long way to go here. We're just a couple hundred votes, 300 votes, and some change there. So see if that holds up for the president right here. But you pull up right here. But I just want to come up here. This would be a huge deal. This would be a huge deal. Duval County is Jacksonville, up here in the top part of the state. President tends to win once you get out of the urban areas, but this is, again, one of the fast-changing areas all across America, but in the Sun Belt states like Florida, you have the city and the suburbs around it, 75%. You see Joe Biden at 54%, President at 45% if you round up. This was a Trump win, just barely, but Donald Trump narrowly carried the suburbs 4 years ago. He's expected to lose the suburbs this time. By how much could determine who wins the presidency side. So if you watch Duval County right here, it's the 7th largest county in Florida. That edge for Joe Biden, we always think about down here is critical for the Democrats, up here critical for the Republicans.
Let's not forget, John, in the
67,000.
The central time zone, they're not going to close until the top of the hour. Right. The eastern time zone in Florida, they close.
Right, and so again, if you will look across, just watch across here. They're still voting out by Pensacola and the Panhandle. So let me just go back and show you, just to remind you, all these smaller counties, you're going to see a lot of red. Right, that is the key for the president. Again, they're not very populist, but when you add up one, then another, then another, then another, you get the votes to offset some of this. It takes time, which is why Florida sometimes roller coasters through the night. But look at,
I see Palm Beach County is now in.
Look at check this. That's 2012. That's 2016. You do see this though. Palm Beach County is in right now. But look, this is 91 to 28. Yeah. We have a long way to go in Palm Beach. But this is the quirks of the map. When you're watching at home, you see this county red. If you're a Democrat, you panic. Which is why we need to visit it.
Go back to Miami.
Remind you that we're very early in this count here. So let me take the lines away so you're not distracted. But if that stays blue, that's a big deal for Democrats. If that stays blue, it's a big deal for Democrats. You come back down to Miami-Dade. Again, if you're in the Biden campaign, you want it to be better than that, right? Doesn't mean it's game over, but it means if you're not getting it here, you better make it up somewhere else. And we'll watch the rest of this vote come in. Again, if there's a lot of early votes to come in, these numbers could change dramatically.
Because 40 years ago, Hillary Clinton did a lot better in Miami-Dade County.
She did 64%. And again, part of it's the percentage. That's one thing you look at. The other thing you look at, especially because we expect turnout to be up this year, sometimes that helps you, sometimes that helps you more. 624. See, in Miami-Dade 4 years ago, the president got 334,000 if you round that up by that one. So you come back here, remember 624 and 333, and you see the president right now already has a significant 120,000 more votes out of Miami-Dade than he did 4 years ago. Now, is that just because turnout is up everywhere, or is he making inroads with the Democratic constituency in Miami-Dade? That is what we'll learn as we go deeper into the night. But if there's Joe Biden right now, if you're worried about anything in Florida, you're worried about that you're winning Miami-Dade, but not by the margins that you wanted. Still, though, 74,000 votes with a long way to go. And again, this is blue at the moment. I mean, red at the moment. We don't expect it to stay that way, but we'll see as we count them. And again, the key part for me, here we go. Orange County has filled in 700 votes and change there. So it doesn't matter. This has to be blue at the end of the night. If that stays red, Joe Biden's not going to win Florida. But it's very early on as we go through. And as you get real votes, 83% here. This could be critical here. Osceola County here. If you come through, 61%. Again, you're looking for math, especially if you're Joe Biden and you're not getting what you wanted out of Miami-Dade. You need to make up for it somewhere else. So you're looking here, 50,000, 85,000 4 years ago. You come back in now, Joe Biden right now about the same, a little below where Hillary Clinton was. We're still waiting for some votes there. This is what we're going to have to do. Florida gets so competitive. You go county by county, you match up the math to 4 years ago, you see how much turnout is up this year compared to then, and you're averaging it all out.
50% of the vote in Florida is now in. Trump is ahead by about 74,000 votes, 50.2% to 48.9%. Now he's up by 91,500 votes, 51%. Florida is very fast. The numbers are coming in quickly. Let's look at Georgia right now.
So you move up, you see Georgia. It's not often you see Georgia blue. And again, you see a lot of red, and yet Georgia is blue because right now Joe Biden is winning. And this one here, this is Fulton County where Atlanta is. We don't have any votes yet. But then you move here to Cobb County to the north. And again, this could be the story of the night. I emphasize could be because we're early. But you look at right here, only 27% of the vote in, 63 to 35 in Cobb County. This is the suburbs to the northwest of Atlanta. It used to be Republican country. Hillary Clinton won it last time, but just barely, right? 49 to 47. So this is what we're going to watch throughout the night. Especially suburbs are growing. Suburbs are where the people are. Suburbs is where you get your math. Especially if you're a Democrat, you know Donald Trump's going to run it up in all these smaller rural counties. As you see, this is 2016. You come up to 2020, you're starting to see the same repeat of that, right? You see the president. That's not a huge margin there. We'll see how it goes. But in these small rural counties, the president tends to run it up. You move up here, let's just see 83%. In a county like that, again, it's 3,000 plus, 4,000 plus votes when you're done, said and done. That's what Trump does to offset the urban areas and the close-in suburbs. So one of the tests tonight, let's drop down a little bit more to Henry County, 59% there, come back in time, 50%, 51% if you round up. So those are the things you're looking for, especially in these places where Joe Biden's performance in the suburbs is absolutely critical. He needs African-American turnout to be up in Atlanta, in Augusta, in Columbus, in Savannah. And he needs, when you get into the suburbs, and the Democrats do very well in the close-in suburbs, more and more increasingly in the Trump age, they've been moving out into the outer rings of the suburbs, out to the exurban areas. So you watch this play out here. You look 16,000 votes ahead there in the state of Georgia. Let's take a peek in South Carolina. The president winning quite handily here so far, but that's very preliminary in the vote. One of the things we'll watch throughout the night, are the president's margins about the same, or do they shrink even in the places he wins? Just want to peek one more time at Florida as we go here. Florida 2020. Welcome back to the roller coaster. Joe Biden has pulled ahead by 7,784 votes in the state of Florida. But again, 49.6, 49.5. We're early in the night. Florida is as close as it gets, which is pretty remarkable. Let's just take a closer look at what we're seeing here. Palm Beach turned blue. We thought it would. And a big vote dump to get it blue. That's why the state changed, right? We had just a few hundred votes in Palm Beach a few moments ago, and the president was leading. Right now, Wolf, the Florida vote coming in as Joe Biden would like it, as we wish, but we will keep counting.
We certainly will. Florida's emerging as a major fight that's going on right now. We're coming up on another critical round of poll closings in the Biden-Trump presidential race just moments from now. That's when most polls will close in North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. Together, those states account for 38 of the 270 electoral votes needed to win the White House. All right, we got a key race alert right now. Too early to call in these states, including in Ohio. Too early to call in Ohio. 18 electoral votes in Ohio. Too early to call. Too early to call in North Carolina as well. 15 electoral votes in North Carolina. Too early to call. West Virginia, 5 electoral votes. Too early to call in West Virginia right now. Let's take a look at the Electoral College map where it stands right now. It still remains the same. 11 Electoral College votes for Trump, Indiana. 0 so far for Biden. 270 needed to win the presidency. Let's get a key race alert right now. All right, in Florida right now, let's start. 29 electoral votes. Donald Trump has a narrow lead right now with 59% of the estimated vote is in. Look how close it is. Got a lead of about 25,000 votes, 49.7% to 49.4%. This is a must-win for Trump. He must win Florida. If Biden were to win Florida, it would be very, very difficult for Trump to get reelected. We're watching Florida so closely. In Virginia right now, very, very early. Only 2% of the estimated vote is in. Trump is ahead by about 33,000 votes, 65.4% to 32.9%. In South Carolina, also very, very early. Trump is ahead 70.4% to 29.6%. In Kentucky, 18% of the vote is in. Trump is ahead by 75,000 votes, 58% to 40.5%. 3 more states right now. Let's take a look.
Very good morning to all of you. It's the race to the 270 mark. Will it be Donald Trump or will it be Joe Biden going to the White House? Well, it's the final election day in America. Americans are not just casting their ballot in this last-minute voting at the moment that's going on, but counting is also on. And at the moment, we do have results for at least one state of Indiana, which is already out, as you can see here behind me. That's marked in red. The rest of the states that have been marked in yellow are all swing states. These are going to really be the important states that are going to determine the fate of Donald Trump or Joe Biden. So after this result that has come in from Indiana, this is where the two contestants lie. 45% popular votes for Joe Biden, 54% popular votes there for Donald Trump, 11 electoral votes for Donald Trump, and at the moment, no electoral votes in favor of Joe Biden. But that's only because the result for one single state, Indiana, has been announced. The rest of the states' counting is still continuing. From what we are getting at the moment, in one crucial state of Florida, Joe Biden has taken a slight marginal lead there. Remember, this is one of the important states, Florida. It's one of the swing states, and last time around with the 29 electoral votes, this was one of the crucial states for Donald Trump. It had turned red, and because of this, Donald Trump was able to make his way into the White House, beating Hillary Clinton. At the moment, what is being called a consequential election, a historic election in America, people are still going out there and voting. Last-minute attempts are being made to get voters out there at the polling booths and cast their ballot. In fact, Kamala Harris, who's running for vice president, who's the running mate of Joe Biden, put out a tweet as well asking people to go out, vote, and if they face any problems, to call the hotline numbers that are available to every American to seek help and reach out in case they're not able to cast their ballot. Early voting has been going on for weeks now. Early voting stopped in many of the states just ahead of the final day of voting. It is largely believed that early voters are Democrats. I mean, this is the analysis of those on the ground, and that those who are voting today are largely Republicans, but of course, things could be changing. We've seen a record number of people coming out and voting in Texas. In fact, all records have been broken as far as the voting is concerned. So some analysts say the large number of people who are coming out and voting are in fact ones who are seeking change. We're getting some updates now that are coming in live from CNN. As I was pointing out, President Trump will win Indiana. That's what CNN projections are now showing. There are 11 electoral votes at stake in Indiana. It takes 270 electoral votes to win the presidential election because there are 538 total electoral votes in the 50 states, and they are split up in states according to their population. Now, at the moment, the projections by CNN indicates that Indiana will be going to Donald Trump with 11 electoral votes. So, at the moment, only results in one state really have been declared, apart from what we saw in one small area of New Hampshire where all the votes had gone to Joe Biden. But, of course, the entire state has to be counted first. And the elector gets the maximum number of votes, takes away all the electoral votes of that state. So in Indiana, it's red. All the electoral votes in the state, which are 11 in number, have gone to Donald Trump. Joining me now, Professor Nadia. She's the professor of political theory in Columbia University. Joining us live, Professor Nadia, many thanks for speaking with us this morning. The one state results projections are being shown by CNN at the moment. Of course, this is too early at the moment to state what is happening on the ground, as voting also still continues, I believe, in some of the areas. But from the numbers that we are seeing, who are stepping out to vote, in many of the places, records have been broken. Does it indicate some sort of a desire for change, which could go against the incumbent here, Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, the question of Indiana is not the final issues. I mean, we need to wait for Florida and Pennsylvania in particular. And then also other states like Michigan and so on and so forth, even Texas.
You may end your live stream?
But so there is a split country. The country is very polarized. It's very hard to say whether the majority of American electors want to go with Biden rather than Trump. It's so hard to define, to decide on these two candidates, because although they seem to be opposite, and they are opposite because Trump made the campaign for and against himself. He defined himself as the only object of the campaign. Pro-Trump, against Trump. There are no other issues but Trump for or against. These may be, for some people, good. Those who have clear ideas, those who stay with or against, in any case, the so-called, faithful partisans. But for the large majority, the so-called medium voters, these can be very disturbing. And thus, it's very hard to say now what will be the best possible outcome of this only Indiana call for Trump.
Absolutely. I mean, nothing depends on Indiana clearly, because it is the swing states that will largely determine who comes to the White House. And as you're rightly pointing out, Florida and Pennsylvania being extremely important at the moment. From the projections that are coming in, it appears to be a close fight in Florida as well. And last time we do remember that once Donald Trump had taken the 29 electoral votes in Florida, his victory was pretty much sealed.
Still can't get the fucking thing on.
A lot of Indian American population as well. Let me just bring that in over here, because this is a swing state. The contest is close. Does every vote count? And therefore, the small section of people really just above a lakh there, will that also
make a difference also? The vice of Biden, Kamala Harris has a kind of attractions for minorities, generally much more. I tend to be very prudent in this case, and not to be so, convinced now that things are going easily for Biden. It's very hard. I myself compare myself now and last time with Hillary Clinton, when I was very optimistic until the end, and I learned to be very cautious, because we really don't know, even the projections they are. So we know, for instance, now that the number of voters are very high. Perhaps it's the last huge big turnout since the last 120 years. Yet also the Republicans go to vote, not only the Democrats. So it's very hard to base these projections over trends that are.
Yes, fair enough, Professor Nadia. Your point there taken, just stay on with us. Let's quickly take a look at some of the other possibilities that America is bracing for at the moment. And certainly one of those is the possibility of unrest in case of political uncertainty. What is it like for the moment on the ground? How's the police bracing up for the situation? Here are the details.
While some consider Wisconsin to be a battleground state, Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich expects the battles will be kept between the candidates.
Election day is a pretty important day in our democracy as a country, and so it's a time for us all to come together and exercise our constitutional right to vote. And I think that's a pretty great thing.
Other cities across the United States have taken measures to prevent civil unrest on Election Day. Genrich says Green Bay has an appropriate security plan in place.
With respect to those polling locations, the 16 across the city of Green Bay, but also our central count. So we feel very comfortable with the plan that we have in place.
The National Guard has more than 400 members assisting at the polls, but they won't be in uniform and they won't be armed.
Their role is simply to serve the same duties as a traditional poll worker would.
While the Wisconsin National Guard has been requested to help at polling places on Election Day, they have not been requested to help with civil unrest, but say they're there if they're needed.
But we're certainly always in close contact with officials all across the state. And would be ready if needed for any kind of response in any Wisconsin community. But at this time, we don't have any requests for assistance for civil unrest support.
Mayor Genrich expects voters to keep it civil, but says police are prepared for all contingencies. In Green Bay, Charlie Rubeski, Fox 11 News.
Joining us now with the very latest from Ground Zero, from America. Pavni Mittal is joining us from New York. Manisha Gandhi is joining us from Texas. Good morning to both of you. Good evening, rather, over there. Pavni, I want to come first to you. What is happening at the moment, Pavni, in New York? Any projections that are reflecting at the moment? Of course, we know that New York is one of the states that votes blue.
Good evening, good evening. Yes, actually, so New York is really not really surprised. You know, like you said, Indiana knew it was going to go red. New York is something that we know is going to go blue. So that's not really the thing. But, you know, I'm here at Times Square and I have sort of a deja vu that I'd like to share. You know, 4 years ago, I was reporting right here, in 2016, and this place was packed. You know, this is pre-pandemic. So you had all of that. And today you have, if I can just take you around, you can see there's a lot more press than there are people. Of course, it has to do with the fact that there are not many tourists coming here. And also the fact that New York is not paying host to both the candidates. Last year you had, the Trump headquarters and the Hillary Clinton headquarters barely a couple of miles away from each other. So it's a very, very different scene. And people here are very nervous. We have a broadcast on ABC, which is where we're getting all our information. But the other thing that's really sticking out over here is that below the glitzy and glamorous sort of billboards, you have, retailers that have boarded up. You can see it over there. You can see some Ray-Ban ones. You can see, a lot of the H&M store. They've all boarded up because there is anticipation of unrest. There's a lot of police vehicles that have been employed across the city. So retailers who have had a terrible year and are not taking any chance.
All right, we are going to stay with us. CNN reporter Emily Schmidt is joining us from the Trump headquarters in D.C. Many thanks.
But whether or not he will be in that majority leader spot is a big, big question tonight.
We should introduce Dana Prano and Juan Williams.
Do that.
With Chris Wallace. Dana, this is a big win.
Reflect results as well, or at least projections, for instance, Indiana.
This is the one that's going to go down, and Senator McConnell is going to lose to Amy McGrath, but it's not going.
You have to say,
we expected those 11 electoral votes would go to the Republicans, but also remember Indiana is the home state of Vice President Mike Pence, and so very strong roots and ties there. But Maha, was interesting a few minutes.
For Chuck Schumer, the candidate recruitment in that race was really not very good. Plus, think about what Mitch McConnell was able to close on. The confirmation of a new Supreme Court justice and Amy Coney Barrett, and she's a very popular person across America. The other thing is that you called West Virginia for Shelley Moore Capito. She was the first woman to represent West Virginia in the Senate, and she will be returning there for another 6 years. I think when it comes to candidate recruitment, when you look at Mitch McConnell, what he was able to do versus what Chuck Schumer was able to do, even though there are very close races to watch tonight in the Senate, that Mitch McConnell probably wins when it comes to that score. One last for you and to the conversation here. It makes me think about South Carolina, about Lindsey Graham's race against Jamie Harrison. Lindsey Graham also probably got a bit of a lift from the Judiciary hearing, which he ran as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Your thoughts as we look ahead to that race, which has been very tight for Lindsey Graham?
Well, again, to me, I don't see that race, that, the confirmation, maybe Coney Barrett.
This might be for the team, yeah.
I think it's an accomplishment.
Ever, the swing states become even more crucial. We are hearing that Florida seems to be a tight contest. Is that correct?
I think in large part what we're seeing tonight is
Absolutely. You mentioned the number, and it's a magic number, 29 electoral college votes in Florida. Trump, of course, took it from Hillary Clinton last time in 2016. This is a huge fight. When you take a look at how many times President Trump, since about August, has been to Florida, 10 times. That number, of course, higher than Joe Biden, who took a different approach towards campaigning, did much more virtually than those large in-person sessions that we saw Donald Trump doing. But Florida is a key prize. There is no doubt that if you can nab those 29 electoral college votes, it puts you much closer towards the magic 270. However, the Biden campaign has also laid out today saying they believe that if they had to, they certainly don't want to, but they believe there is still a path towards 270, even if they lost Florida, even, they say, if they lost Florida and Pennsylvania. But that is certainly a path towards 270 that gets much more narrow, much more precarious. They are hoping that is not the situation. Certainly, the Trump campaign is feeling that they have done the work, that they've done the groundwork in Florida. They are hoping that the numbers will pay off for them.
Emily, many thanks for getting us all those details from DC and putting that into perspective as well, which is very crucial at the moment. Let me go across to Manisha Gandhi. Manisha, Emily is just pointing out polling on East Coast has closed. West Coast people are continuing to poll at the moment. What's the situation like, first of all, as far as polling is concerned?
Where you going?
I know for a fact. But he's worked with him effectively.
What?
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to.
It's the first time.
That's her name. Original, on the edge, breaking storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go there now
Put this fire out right
with
now.
ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw, live. No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it.
That's frightening.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live, streaming everywhere, right to you.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before. Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families. Living large, but
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
where was all this money coming from?
Buckle up, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con. All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
State of Kentucky. Kentucky will go to Donald Trump. It is the home of the Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. Donald Trump won it last time around by about 30 points. Only about a third of the vote is in right now, but we can project that Donald Trump will win Kentucky again. Getting more vote in from the state of Georgia right now, about 77% of the expected vote in. A long way to go there in Georgia. Donald Trump leading Joe Biden right now. In the state of Virginia, has been trending blue for some time. Right now, this could be, this is interesting. Donald Trump still ahead with about 13% of the expected vote in. The polls were not close in Virginia. Looking forward to watch where the vote is coming in from the state of Virginia right now. As we've said, the president has already won the state with 16% of the vote in Indiana. Right there, we cannot project that yet, but the president is well ahead right there. And in Florida, we are, of course, watching the vote there in Florida with 80% of the expected vote in right there. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are battling it out. I want to go to Martha Raddatz, our chief global affairs anchor, my This Week co-anchor as well. And Martha, you've been traveling the country through this election season.
About 6,000 miles since September, George, crossing the country and all the way back. And I think we really have to talk about the voters. It's so extraordinary how many people have voted in this election, how passionate they are about this election. And I can tell you many of those same people who I talked to over the last couple of months I've talked to today. They are anxious. They are tense. One of the stories was in Kansas. I call it the tale of two farmers. Bob Hazelwood voted 2 weeks ago. In 2016, he voted for an independent. When I talked to him in September, he was leaning towards Donald Trump, but he decided he did not like his character. He did not like the chaos. He voted for a Democrat for the very first time ever, voting for Joe Biden. But his nephew told me this evening he was also leaning Donald Trump, and he voted for Donald Trump. He said he could not vote for Joe Biden. He said he didn't feel that Joe Biden supports farmers. But all over the country, everywhere I went, in the most rural areas, you would see massive signs, to Pennsylvania, where you would see every sign of Biden on one block, Trump on the next block. And many voters there who we talked to just a week or so ago also said they were switching, that they voted for Donald Trump, but are now voting for Joe Biden, and most of those were suburban women.
And what you hear about that time and time again, Martha Raddatz, it's the tweets, it's the character.
It's exactly that. And I think really that comes down to character versus policy, and people are really trying to decide what they believe in. Like Bob Hazelwood in Kansas said he didn't like Donald Trump's character, but he loves his policy. So it's sort of personal versus policy. And Bob Hazelwood said he looked at the rest of the country and what a vote for Joe Biden would mean for the rest of the country as opposed to Donald Trump.
Martha Raddatz, thanks. What about Eva Pilgrim in Pennsylvania? Eva Pilgrim has traveled across the state of Pennsylvania as well. You cut your teeth, WPVI in Philadelphia. You've been across the state, and you've seen the same thing Martha has talked about. Neighborhoods where you have Biden signs on one side of the block, Trump signs on the other.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of mixed political support across the state of Pennsylvania. The thing we hear everyone talking about on both sides of the political spectrum is the concern over these ballots. A lot of people were thinking about potentially sending in a mail-in ballot, but then they got concerned because of all the confusion and speculation around the mail-in. So they decided that they would show up in person today to make sure that their vote counted. Making sure their vote counted was incredibly important to almost everyone we spoke to, George.
And Eva, you sent me a note earlier that was fascinating to me. You said we've heard so much about these shy Trump voters, people who won't tell pollsters they're going to vote for Donald Trump. You seem to come across what you would consider shy Biden voters in Pennsylvania.
That's exactly right, George. I was actually really surprised to discover this after talking to some neighbors. They would see the Trump signs and they were concerned because they saw Biden signs that had been destroyed or windows that were broken. So they didn't want their neighbors to know that they were going to be voting for Joe Biden. George?
Eva Pilgrim, thanks very much. Coming up at 8 p.m. now, and these polls are going to close in 16 states at 8 p.m. We'll be here with all the results we have when we come back.
Moments from now, we're live in the battleground states as results come in. Polls are already closed in 9 states. They're about to close in the key states of Florida and Pennsylvania when Election Night 2020 continues on ABC.
ABC News, straightforward.
Stand down.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen a red Focus.
The steering wheel's getting stiff.
Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
Admit it, these days, what you need to know seems to change, well, like every day. So what is it that you really need to know? Want to know to help you not just get through your day, but make the most of it, help feel smarter, feel better, feel happier. Well, how about throw that Good Morning America in the afternoon? GMA3, what you need to know. It's all about you. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. This is going to be so good. Wednesday night, get ready for a curtain so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before. Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest families. Large, but
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where is all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con. Really good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Cross my office up to this. Whatever you get your child.
Please stop.
This is an ABC News special. There has never been an election quite like this, with so much on the line.
We are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning. We choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, we choose truth over lies. So it's time to stand up, take back our democracy.
Live from New York City, and across the country. Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
8 p.m. at East Coast just closed in 16 more states, and we have more results. In the state of New Jersey, Joe Biden will win the state of New Jersey. Chris Christie, I guess that's not a surprise.
I can't believe it. Oh, tell me Cory Booker won back. It's not really going to pass.
We will check out another projection. Also, state of Massachusetts, Joe Biden will win the state of Massachusetts right now, and it's 11 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the state of Maryland, and it's 10 electoral votes. A pickup for Donald Trump in the state of Oklahoma. He won that last time around. 7 electoral votes at play, and Donald Trump will those. Joe Biden will win his home state of Delaware, and it's 3 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the District of Columbia, and it's 3 electoral votes. But let's take a look down in the map now and see what we show. Oklahoma and Kentucky for President Trump, Vermont, and those states up in the Northeast, Massachusetts, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey for Joe Biden right now. Still early in the night, 6 states to 244 electoral votes to 15. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Ohio in the middle of the country. 28% of the expected vote is in, and right now, at least, Tom Yamas, Joe Biden has a lead.
Yeah, and actually, there's some good news for Joe Biden out of Ohio. The Biden campaign didn't really contest Ohio, and they made some last trips there, and here's why they have reasons to be happy. In counties like Wood that went for Barack Obama, then switched over to President Trump, you can see Joe Biden is on top, 55% of the vote in, but you can see he's overperforming from Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Another one of those counties that President Trump was able to swing, Trumbull County, you can see Joe Biden again on top. He's up almost 10 points there as well. But, Ohio's all about the 3 C's, and George, I know you know this. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. We don't have information for Cincinnati yet, but in Columbus and in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Joe Biden is doing really well. They're 74%. He's up almost 10 points from where Hillary Clinton was. These are the areas where Democrats run up the vote. Lake County, which is always a nail biter, 51 to 47 there. His numbers are really good compared to Hillary Clinton 4 years ago.
Okay, Tom, thanks. What have we seen in the exit polls?
Yeah, it's really different. Trump points out some encouraging numbers, but the exit polls reflect something slightly different in Ohio. If you take a look at the president's job performance in Ohio, 54% approved, 44% disapproved. This is the strongest number we're seeing in that sort of upper Midwest of the country. And when you break it down to those 2 central issues, containing COVID, rebuilding the economy, 48% say the pandemic is more important to try to contain. But here's where it gets interesting, George. I was digging a little deeper here. The vast majority of Ohio voters prefer Trump over Biden to handle the pandemic moving forward, 51 to 46%. And that's even with the governor, Mike DeWine, who's received such high marks for his handling of the pandemic in recent days, saying it's raging throughout the state. But still, Ohio voters, despite what they're seeing with COVID, believe President Trump is the best to handle this moving forward.
Yvette Simpson, your home state, what do you make of the results?
Looking good. Even in places like Delaware County and Mahoning County, we're seeing Joe Biden outperform Hillary Clinton by 10, 20%, which is really great. And as you know, Ohio has got a lot to prove. We made presidents, we made Barack Obama both times, and so I think Ohio has a chip on his shoulder, and we're ready to flip back to blue in this one. A lot of hard work going on in Ohio, and hopefully we can deliver today.
We saw Joe Biden make a late play in Ohio, a late play in your home state of Iowa.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in Iowa, though, I'm not pessimistic yet. I think the first votes often come in are the absentees. We've seen Democrats do very well across the country with absentees. So I expect that Ohio will close strong for the president. In Iowa, there seems to be a lot of momentum for Republicans. And what we see across the board here is that places you expect Republicans to win appear to be closing for Republicans. Really, North Carolina, Georgia, that's what this is going to come down to tonight.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's go to Adrian Bankert in Columbus. Adrian, as David Muir said, COVID has been raging through the state of Ohio for the last several weeks.
Yes, that's right, George. In fact, new numbers posted today saying that there were over 4,200 new cases of the virus here in Ohio, 33 more deaths. That takes the number of total cases up to more than 225,000 in this state. Now, that is one concern for voters here in Ohio, but their major concern is the economy, joblessness, workers needing employment, and they overall, according to our early data, show that they believe that Trump can handle this more than Biden. But again, every poll is very, very tight. And this is a toss-up state. This is showing that the results are tied between Trump and Biden. But again, this could be a very historic signpost for the election. There have only been 2 exceptions where Ohio didn't call the presidential winner. In fact, if you just look back at history, whoever wins Ohio lends itself to winning the presidency, winning the nomination. So we're awaiting those numbers. The polls closed at 7:30, though. Anybody who is in line still could be seen and still could cast their ballot. But again, those numbers for COVID, a big concern, and a lot of people are looking at joblessness. And like you guys are talking about in studio, the ability for Ohio to flip between red and blue is certainly something we have seen.
Pretty hard and fast rule. Republicans do not win the White House if they don't win Ohio. Adrian Banker, thanks very much. Let's go back to Florida. Now 25,000 votes or so separate Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Tom Ramos, Donald Trump is ahead.
Yeah, he's ahead, and I'll tell you one data point right now that to me is the most interesting so far. The absentee early vote, 77% of the expected vote in. That's going to be the early vote. And look at these numbers, George. The conventional wisdom was that Democrats were going to blow out Republicans in the early vote. And in Florida right now, it is neck and neck. Every time we look at the state, it's getting closer and closer. But what we have to keep our eye on right here is this section of the state right here. We're talking about Pensacola, the Panhandle. That is Trump country. The out there, and it's important because this is such a close race. One of the problems, besides Miami-Dade County for Joe Biden, is that he's underperforming in some Democratic counties, places like Osceola. He has a big lead there, but he's underperforming from where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. We look at Orlando, which was ravaged by COVID, especially the economy there. He's doing a little better there. That's a good spot for him. And he's made some gains in places like Jackson, Duval. This is a Republican county. He's winning right there. It is so close right now, George. We're going to have to keep our eye on the state minute by minute because we're talking about thousands of votes at certain parts of the night.
Okay, Tom Yamas, Mary Bruce, what is the Biden campaign telling you about Florida?
Well, all day long they had been telling us that they knew that Florida was going to be a toss-up. They, I suspect, are pouring over these numbers just like we are. Look, in areas like Miami-Dade, for instance, they never expected to do as well as Hillary Clinton did there, but I suspect they are very surprised to see just how close it is in that area right now. They've spent a lot of time, really the entire Biden team, fanning out across the state in these final days. Joe Biden was in Florida today, the candidate's wife, Barack Obama, Biden's not-so-secret biggest weapon in this race in many days. Obama was in Florida 3 times in just the last 2 weeks, including in that critical Miami-Dade area. So they put a lot of effort into trying to get out the vote there. And so much of the message there, of course, on the pandemic as they try to target senior voters. I think especially about one moment in particular, Biden during one of his 3 trips to the state, speaking to a group of seniors and saying how many of them this year haven't been able to go out and hug their grandchildren, trying to directly tie the president's handling of this pandemic to their own personal lives, to their own families. That is a message that the Biden team is hopeful will resonate in the state. But man, it is very close right now. I know they're looking at these numbers just as closely as we are, George.
They certainly are. Cecilia Vega, the president changed his registration earlier this year to vote in Florida.
Yeah, George, I think it's hard for a lot of people to remember because we think of Donald Trump as a New Yorker, but he is now a Florida resident. The First Lady just voted in Florida this morning. He changed his residence from New York to Florida not too long ago, and this is a state that he has visited more than any other during the course of his presidency, some 82 visits over the course of the last 4 years, and he has been there numerous times over the course of this election and spent $78 million down there in Florida. And our team is hearing from sources who are telling us that the president, George, is over the moon with the numbers that he is seeing coming from Florida, especially Miami-Dade. I think they thought that the Democrats would have an advantage at this stage of the night, looking at the early voting that was happening there on their end. So they're clearly very pleased with what they're seeing at this point. And we're also told, George, that President Trump Inside is watching these returns between the residents and the East Room here in the White House where that event is taking place.
Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Nate Silva, let's remind everybody what happens to your projection if Donald Trump actually wins the state of Florida.
So, yeah, let's see. He's at 10%. It's going to shoot way up if he wins Florida. It's going to take a little bit of time to calculate here. But Trump, if he wins Florida, is much more in the running. He's about a 1 in 3 chance of winning overall. The one silver lining for Biden a bit is that this seems to be mostly concentrated among Cubans in South Florida. It might not translate to other parts of the country. But, Florida would be the first step toward a Trump upset.
Okay, Nate Silver, thanks very much. Let's take a look at the key state of Georgia right now. Let's pull that up. We've got about 11% of the expected vote in, and Donald Trump has the lead. Tom Yamas.
Yeah, let's take a look at Georgia right now. We do want to say, though, there's a lot of the vote that is not in Georgia, and that's important because you have the state of Georgia, and then you have the state of Atlanta and the suburbs. And 50% of the vote for the state of Georgia is going to come out of here. So, Georgia, it is still very, very early. Any signs for either campaign? Look, there's a lot of red counties. Georgia got redder in those red counties after 2016, but the blue counties expanded. They got bluer. So many people moving to Georgia. Right now, it's tough to say whose state this is. Only 11% of the voting, and a lot of the Atlanta metro area still needs to come in. But we can't talk about Cobb County. Cobb County once the home of Newt Gingrich, and at 63%, with 31% of the vote in, Joe Biden's overperforming Hillary Clinton. If he's going to win Georgia, he has to win big in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. And tonight, right now, if this holds, and this is the trend, that's good news for Joe Biden.
One of the other ones, I don't know if you can pick it up, pull it up. Can you pull up Gwinnett County?
It's not in yet. We don't have information for it yet, but that was one of the counties that Hillary Clinton flipped 4 years ago. We're going to be watching it closely so far. And the reason why we don't have information, I want to explain this to our voters. We want to make sure we have enough of a sample in to kind of say who's winning what and the votes have been counted. We're not there yet, so we're not going to touch it, George.
What are we seeing in the exits there?
A couple of things out of Georgia, George, to take a look at. First of all, let's take a look at. They just switched this up on me right here. Let's take a look at Georgia's job performance. 50% approve of the job that President Trump is doing on the all-important issue. 51% though say the pandemic is most important. But I've been diving into some of the numbers in Georgia. The racial and ethnic makeup, minorities making up 4 in 10 Georgia voters. That matches the 2016 numbers for Hillary Clinton. When it comes to moderates, even 39% with conservatives, that also matches 4 years ago. Now, this is interesting. In Atlanta, a strong support of Atlanta brought Clinton to within 5 points of Trump 4 years ago. That is up slightly to 20% of the voters. There's a slight uptick there. But again, he's holding his own in the exit polls, the president in Georgia. They're giving him the edge in handling the pandemic moving forward as well.
TJ Holmes is in Atlanta. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, here on the ground here, you all made those important points there about where I am. I'm standing in this Atlanta metro area where, yes, this is a big state, 159 counties, but 50% of the vote is wrapped up in 4 counties right here in this surrounding area. You've been talking about Cobb and Gwinnett counties. Those 2 counties, yes, Hillary Clinton lost this state by 5 percentage points, but she picked up Gwinnett and Cobb County. Those are 2 counties that are the second and third most populous counties in the state of Georgia. And she was the first Democrat to pick up those 2 counties since Jimmy Carter, the son of Georgia, did so back in 1976. So this is a big deal here if they can perform, if Joe Biden can perform well in this area. Now, we might not know for some time. We're expecting to start, George, getting some results here. It's 8 o'clock now, but we talk so much about all the early votes that came in. So how long is it going to take to get those? They didn't count them before today, but they started processing them before today, essentially collecting all those memory cards, essentially opening the mail-in ballots and getting them ready. So essentially all they had to do tonight, George, was click a button and to count those votes. So we should start getting some of those results of all those early ballots, all those early votes that did come in, that record-setting 3.9 million. We should start getting those pretty soon to give us an indication. But yes, it's so critical here in these 4 counties how Joe Biden performs compared to how Hillary Clinton did. She lost the state, but that's why Democrats thought there was an opening. There was a chance. There was something here. They were making some inroads once they started doing a deep dive on the numbers from 4 years ago, George.
TJ Holmes, thanks very much. Georgia's neighbor, Tennessee, has just come in for Donald Trump. Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes will go for Donald Trump. Also, Donald Trump has now picked up the state of Indiana and its electoral votes. So it's still quite early in the night. We have to be patient. Every state that's gone has gone the way it was expected to go. 6 states for Joe Biden, 4 for Donald Trump. Long night ahead. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here.
on Disney Plus.
Now it could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird.
Please stop. You're so fun. I had to remind myself to breathe. Let's do this.
Give it to her.
Martin going?
Give it to her, man.
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished. Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, all assets are documented.
Josh, did you play your one?
Give it to her.
The first time that I met him, it just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of the killer.
Now, new details.
Put it in here.
New interviews.
She ends up revealing the biggest
Give it
bomb
here, man.
Will happen next. The new 2020 event.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
Seems to change about every day.
what is it that you really want to
Randy,
know.
give it to her.
To help you not just get through your day,
Give it to her.
Feel smarter.
feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning
Give it
America?
to her.
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smart not. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin. Just give it to me straight. Straightforward news. Straight to the heart of the story. ABC News. Straightforward.
With so much at stake and so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Moore.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
And we're back with our coverage on election night 2020, and we can say now that Mitch McConnell in the state of Kentucky has been reelected to the Senate. Mitch McConnell has been the Republican leader. Too early to say whether he'll continue to be the Republican leader, but we can say he will continue to be a senator. Mitch McConnell has won tonight. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Virginia. It's still too early for us to project about 26% of the expected vote in, and right now it appears Tom Yamas said Donald Trump has a sizable lead.
Yeah, it's still really early, as you mentioned. I want to blow up Virginia here because it's a little smaller in our map. Here's part of the problem right now why we don't have a good sense of what's going on. The D.C. suburbs, Alexandria, Arlington, that entire area, Fairfax, that's going to be 25% of the vote, and a lot of that so far we don't have in. But where Donald Trump is winning, he's doing really well, and he's actually overperforming in some areas. When we look at Henrico County, this was a county Democrats won pretty decisively 4 years ago. You can see 57 to 36. Tonight, right now, with 36% of the vote in, Donald Trump's on top. In the swing area, down here in the Hamptons Road area, Virginia Beach, Donald Trump barely lost 4 years ago. Tonight, he's up, and he's up big. But again, it's still very early in Virginia, George. We're still waiting for a lot of the vote to come in. You see a lot of these red counties. This is the same way it looked 4 years ago. Yet when the blue filled in, that's when Democrats won.
Tom Yamas, thanks very much. Now let's pull up Texas. Seemed to become a battleground late in the game of this campaign.
Yeah, so we take a look at Texas. A lot of the vote not in yet. What we do have, of course, the most important county in Texas, the biggest county, Harris County right here. This is Houston, 56 to 42. He's matching Hillary Clinton so far. One of the big reasons Democrats was in play, that Republicans were vulnerable, is because Donald Trump underperformed from Mitt Romney, and he did it in right here. I should have checked one of these counties. Fort Worth, this is Republican territory right next to Dallas. This is Fort Worth. It's neck and neck. With 80% of the vote in, that's actually very good news for Democrats. Democrats have to be very happy about that number. Just north in the suburbs of Fort Worth, Denton, this is also a Republican county. You can see right there, George, Joe Biden, he's bigger than Hillary Clinton. He's overperforming there. Still a lot of the vote out. You remember all of East Texas, that's going to be Trump country. The border's going to be more for Democrats. We'll be watching Austin, Bexar County, San Antonio, and of course the red counties around Houston.
Okay, thank you. Marcus Moore is in Texas. And of course, Marcus, Texas, one of those states where the early vote produced more than 100% of the 2016 vote with days to go in this campaign.
Yeah, George, that was really the major storyline heading election, more than 9.5 million people casting their ballots early here in Texas, and that, as you said, surpassed the 2016 vote entirely. And so certainly there has been a lot of enthusiasm heading into tonight. And the polls just closed here in Harris County and in most of Texas, but they are still open out to our west in El Paso. So, of course, a few people know that Texas actually straddles two different time zones, and the votes are still being cast out there in El Paso. But we anticipate that in the next few months, we will see the activity here at the Harris County vote headquarters pick up quite a bit, where those poll workers will be bringing in the various ballots from the polling locations, nearly 800 of them in Harris County alone, and they will be counting them here tonight, George. And so far, things have gone smoothly here. Only a couple of polling stations opened late because of technical difficulties, and so that has been good news. Also, the weather was perfect here, and both sides of this campaign, the Republicans and Democrats, encouraged by that, and certainly, clearly, when we talk about the voter turnout, it has been massive here in Texas, and it is the reason why Democrats feel like they can turn this historically red
past.
Well, it has been changing. It was a seat that Mitt Romney won by 16, and Donald Trump won by 9, and then Beto O'Rourke finished 2.5% behind Ted Cruz. And so it's been changing slowly. Donald Trump's has speeded that up somewhat. But I think one of the key signs is this is going to be a very close race. I mean, usually, George, when we're here, we've already called Texas and we're moving on. A Democrat hasn't carried Texas as president since 1976. Denton County, which Tom mentioned, I'll just say, and I looked at the data, Denton County is 98% in. That's a county that Hillary Clinton lost by 20 points. It's a suburban county that has been traditionally solid Republican. Donald Trump is only 7 points ahead in that county with 98% of the vote in. That shows what's happening in the suburban areas.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. We can project another state for Donald Trump right now, West Virginia. West Virginia votes will go to Donald Trump. Only 10% of the expected vote in, but that is a clear win tonight for Donald Trump. So let's take another look at the board. Right now, you see Joe Biden has 44 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 42. We have a long way to go on this election night 2020. We'll be right back.
Quiet. Don't. I've been blessed to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a chair.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before. Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families. Living large, but...
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from?
Buckle up, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con. All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Television. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Who's winning the election?
2020 U.S. presidential election results. According to the Associated Press, Joe Biden leads with 85 electoral votes and 48.5% of the vote. The Associated Press hasn't yet called this race. 270 electoral votes are needed to win.
Joe Biden ahead by 30. Hear me, Mom?
Yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah, shut up.
ABC News, straightforward. Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel ditch stick. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
I've been tested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney Plus.
Yeah, watch this. No, I'm staying up all night watching this.
How you cold when I don't have the AC on?
Take back on. Cold.
Just stay up.
Here
again.
Just stay up.
He's not going to.
He's supposed to close in one more state, the state of Arkansas, but it's too early to project that state right now. Right now, it seems like Joe Biden has we're going to go to the state of North Carolina right now, where Joe Biden is fighting it out with Donald Trump. Tom Yamas, what's the latest we have on that? It appears to be a Biden lead right now, but a lot of that yet to come in.
Yeah, right. And a data point we want to talk about right now as we blow up North Carolina here is the early vote in. 78% we estimate will be early vote here in the state of North Carolina. And look at this, George. Joe Biden was up by 10 points, and that's important because we have to put that in perspective as we look at the rest of the state. He's leading in the early vote now. The president's team has said they're going to win on election day when people actually vote in person. But when we look at the research triangle, this is the areas of Raleigh and Durham. We're talking about Duke and UNC, all the universities right now. Joe Biden's overperforming from Hillary Clinton. This is 82% in. This is a great trend right now because for Joe Biden to win, for the Democrats to win the state, they have to run up the scores in both the research triangle and the triad. These are communities that have pharmaceutical industries, they have tech industries, and they obviously have the universities. They want to run up the score there. Another key county we're watching here is New Hanover. Why are we watching this? Well, it usually mirrors how the state does, right? And a Republican, I should say a Democrat actually, hasn't won this county since Jimmy Carter. Joe Biden's up right now. It has a good mix of people that live here. You have upper middle class suburbs, you have retirees, you have military families, you have people who work in the entertainment industry. So this is a key county we're watching. It's incredibly important. The city is Wilmington. And for anything else, one of the reasons why we have this, it's the hometown of Michael Jordan, George. That's important, all right?
Lindsay Davis, you're keeping an eye on 3 counties in North Carolina?
Yes, that's right. These 3 counties that have the highest number of COVID cases right now all voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I also want to report there were 67 deaths in North Carolina from coronavirus on Tuesday. That's the highest number that they've ever reported. Everything that we measure in North Carolina is on its way up, talking about hospitalizations, positivity cases, and deaths as well. Of course, North Carolina was famous for that dust-up, that infamous dust-up now between the popular Democratic Governor Cooper there in North Carolina when President Trump wanted to have the convention there, and cases started spiking at that time. Then he planned on moving it to Florida, but cases started spiking and ultimately moved it back to North Carolina just for kind of the bare bones roll call. But in North Carolina, not going in the right direction.
Okay, Lindsay, thanks very much. And what did the exit polls say there, David?
Really interesting when you take a look at opinions of both of these candidates in North Carolina. Opinion of Donald Trump, 52% unfavorable there, underwater, obviously, from those numbers. When you look at Joe Biden, favorable, 49 to 47. And when it comes to handling the economy and COVID, 49% trust Donald Trump. Very close there, though, really negligible. But when you laser in on the pandemic, 51% say Joe Biden would be better moving forward. But a couple of key things, differences from 4 years ago. When you take a look at independent voters, right now, Biden is ahead 6 points with independents. Donald Trump was ahead by 16 points 4 years ago over Hillary Clinton. So Joe Biden right now with independent voters in North Carolina. Moderates broke for Hillary Clinton 20 points 4 years ago. They're breaking for Joe Biden by 34 points 4 years later. He's improved upon moderates. The suburban vote, this is interesting. Right now, Donald Trump ahead. Suburban votes 58 to 40%. That includes suburban women. Going with Donald Trump, 56% to 43%. And one last little note, given what we've heard from Tom and Lindsay, in Raleigh-Durham, 20% of the votes last time, well, right now they're breaking 59 to 39 for Joe Biden. He's ahead by 20 points. Hillary Clinton was ahead 22 points with the exit polls 4 years ago. So he needs to make up some ground there if he wants to catch up to where the Democrats were 4 years ago.
Okay, Byron Pitts, you're there in Raleigh.
Well, George, I have to tell you, these vote numbers, early numbers, still early, make both campaigns nervous. The Trump people told us early on they expected to be down maybe 5 to 8 points. The Biden people said they expected to be up 10 to 15 points, and right now there's about a 9-point difference. North Carolina is vital to the Trump campaign. The president has visited this state 11 times in the last 3 months, Mike Pence 8 times, compared to Joe Biden twice, his running mate 4 times. And George, in Southern terms, for Joe Biden, winning North Carolina would be good gravy. It's an indication that he may do well in the Sun Belt states. But for President Trump, winning North Carolina is the full chopped barbecue platter with hush puppies. He needs to win this state. As one of his campaign people told us, George, they see North Carolina as their white flag state. If they lose this state early, then it's a bad sign for what may come tonight.
He's got to win North Carolina. He's got to win Florida. Mary Bruce, the Biden campaign not giving up on North Carolina, yet they're still pushing the vote.
Not at all, George. In fact, we have been noticing on Twitter many Biden campaign aides urging voters to stay in line, saying, do not move, don't go anywhere. Your vote has to be counted tonight. In fact, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris tweeting out, just stay in line. This is, of course, a critical state, and it's one where the Biden team believes when they look at their data, that it's a state where Donald Trump today has to overperform where he was in 2016. They say that Trump tonight has to win 62% of the election day vote to pull this off in North Carolina. And pouring over these early results, these early exit. One of the figures that David just cited sticks out to me among moderates, which broke for Clinton by 20 points in 2016. Now today it's 65-29% for Biden. If that holds, that is the largest Democratic advantage in exit polls that we've seen in this state.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. We just talked about Florida. Let's take another look at Florida right now. Now 91% of the expected vote in, and it does appear, Tom Yamas, opening up much more of a lead.
This does look good for Donald Trump right now. There are not a lot of places for Democrats to make up this vote. It is still very, very close. But George, the story of the night is Miami-Dade County. Look at these totals right now. Again, Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, she comes out of Miami-Dade County with plus 300,000 votes, and she still lost. And tonight, if we look at it right now, the spread less than 100,000 votes. Republicans were successful in trying to tie Democrats and Joe Biden, even though he made it very clear publicly he's not a socialist. They were very successful, it appears, and maybe possibly doing that, tying into that. It was the same thing that happened to Andrew Gillum 2 years ago. Everyone thought he was going to win the state. He was a popular mayor from Tallahassee, and he lost to Ron DeSantis. Speaking of Governor DeSantis, let's go to his county, Volusia County. This is a Trump barometer. President Trump is where he needs. And that's exactly where he was 4 years ago. Another Trump barometer state, Fort Myers, Lee County. You look where he was 4 years ago, 58. He's at 59. So just do the math, George. He's winning where he won before, and he did better in Miami-Dade County. It looks like it could be his night. It's still early. We still got 9% of the vote to go here. But again, like I said, it's going to be hard for Democrats to make up the vote.
Well, what do you make of that underperformance in Miami-Dade?
Well, I think probably the president's done what Tom just said, a really good job with the Cuban community, the Venezuelan community, Latin America as a whole, and Central America. And there's an underperformance there in the African American area. But I would say one point if I could, to flip to North Carolina.
Yeah, let's get North Carolina back up.
Is the Democratic counties, you're getting 84% reporting, yet only 62% reporting in the state. So this thing's going to tighten in a way. But I do think you see a trend across the country as you kind of extrapolating much better among both independent voters, white voters in the African American.
I was going to ask you that. I was Ed about that right now. You have resistance, particularly among young African American Black men, all through this campaign.
I think to start out, there wasn't a real strategy. Right, that was the challenge. He couldn't quite confront, and we talked about this a lot on the program. He couldn't confront his past with the crime bill. Donald Trump was taking credit for criminal justice reform in certain places, particularly in Florida, as you remember, the reenfranchisement of former incarcerated people, and he just couldn't gain ground there. And I didn't see the strategy. There were a lot of organizations in certain states that were specifically targeting Black men, but Florida was unfortunately not one of them. We should see those numbers be quite significant in places like Georgia, where there was a specific effort for Black men in that state. So hopefully they will show up. But I think that was the challenge, his failure to really confront his past on criminal justice reform. There was also some conversation about Kamala Harris's past there as well. And there was not a clear Black male agenda, unfortunately, that was consistent throughout the campaign that may end up costing them.
George, three states, George, that I would tell you I'm seeing and hearing about. In Florida, from Republican leaders, I'm hearing there's just no place for Joe Biden to make up 220,000 votes, and then eventually we'll wind up calling Florida for Trump. Second, in North Carolina, the Trump campaign is very encouraged by the early vote numbers that they've seen, and they think, based on what happened today at the polls, and it's still happening, that they're going to be able to make it up and win narrowly in North Carolina. And lastly, in Pennsylvania, and we're seeing this all over, in Philadelphia, there has been a real underperformance by African American voters in returning their mail-in ballots. They've been seeing this for about 10 days. They were hoping it would come and close tonight. They haven't seen that closure. So we're seeing that. And we're also hearing about double-digit underperformance of African American voters in the city of Cleveland. If those trends continue, all those trends are very helpful to Donald Trump.
Byron Pitts, what do you make of that?
Yeah, George, when you talk to black Democrats in North Carolina, it's a head scratcher. It's disappointing. Consider this, George, that North Carolina has the 7th largest black population in the country. In fact, there are more HBCU, historically black college university students in the state of North Carolina. So this is a state with black middle class in every major city in the state, but yet Biden isn't doing as well, or there hasn't been as much black support for him or enthusiasm. Consider this, in 2008, when Barack Obama won this state, one of only 2 Democrats to win here since 1976, 75% of the black vote came out for Barack Obama. For Hillary Clinton, it dropped down to 64%. And so it's always been curious concerning what would black turnout be for Joe Biden tonight. And George, it says a lot about the psychology of people. Certainly the turnout for Barack Obama was huge in huge for Barack Obama in 2008, because that spoke to pride and optimism. Make no mistake, the vast majority of black voters in North Carolina are not fans of President Trump. So in 2008, we saw the power of hope and pride. And now we're seeing if anger and frustration would be enough to energize voters. And so far, it seems the answer is no.
I want to bring Terry Moran in on this as well. We saw a series of messages from the president on this whole issue. He talks about law and order. He also talks about to African Americans directly on issues of criminal justice, says that he's the best president of black Americans since Abraham Lincoln. At the same time that Joe Biden is going back to Charlottesville, calling the president a white supremacist.
Well, I think a couple of things are happening. One is that President Trump is clearly diversifying the Republican Party. It's hard to argue with that tonight, given the results in Miami-Dade County and what we're seeing if it pans out among black men. It could be that there's a gender divide in the black community that we haven't seen before, with black men more comfortable with President Trump's persona and maybe with his message of, get rich under me. And that is obviously something that every person would want, but maybe more appealing. I think there's something else at work as well. Look, the Republican Party 8 years ago, after they lost to Barack Obama, had a big heart-to-heart talk with itself and said, we have to go and find voters in diverse communities. Donald Trump seems to have done that. And at least so far, that is one of the headlines of tonight.
We will be keeping an eye on it, Sarah Fagan.
Donald Trump competed for this vote in a way that no Republican has ever done so. When you look back at the Republican convention, every night in prime time, there were African-American voices on criminal justice reform, on the economy. And we shouldn't forget that. He deserves credit for that. And it appears that he is maybe not getting a lot of black votes, but maybe people haven't turned out tonight. And that in some ways had an impact.
Mary Bruce, what do you think from the Biden campaign about this phenomenon right now? Do they believe it?
It's a good question. Tonight they are being tight-lipped on that, of course. But it is interesting when you look at the trajectory of this campaign. Joe Biden is often accused of taking the black vote for granted. A lot of attention was paid, especially several months ago at the beginning of this pandemic. Biden on Charlemagne the God, his radio show, saying to black voters that if they don't vote for him, quote, you ain't black. That, of course, did not sit well with many in the black community, despite the fact that, of course, it was black voters, especially female black voters, that helped in many ways rescue Joe Biden's candidacy, helped deliver him this nomination, especially in the South. And Joe Biden has continued to face this criticism. I think, of course, about the moment in our town hall in Pennsylvania just a couple weeks ago, a young black voter, Cedric Humphrey, stood up and asked Joe Biden, what else besides saying, you ain't black if you don't vote for me, are you going to do for the black community? Joe Biden gave him a very lengthy answer about his economic policies and how he plans to try and bridge some of the gaps that we see in this country. But I talked with Cedric after that, and he said that while, yes, he would be voting for Joe Biden, that it was going to be begrudgingly because he simply felt that Joe Biden was just the lesser of two evils. That's not exactly the kind of enthusiasm that may necessarily drive a lot of black voters, especially young black voters, to the polls. And George, I can tell you, I also spent a fair amount of time this summer out in the protests in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. It was again a sentiment you heard a lot from young black voters saying that Joe Biden, they felt, just didn't get them.
Mary Bruce, thanks. Cecilia Vega.
Well, it has been a real juxtaposition from this White House over the last 4 years, George, when it comes to race relations, and speaking to communities of color. This has been a president who has been among the more inflammatory presidents when it comes to race and speaking to the African American and Latino communities than we've ever seen in our lifetimes. He retweeted a video that showed a racist baby. There was that supporter who yelled an epithet at a rally at an event down in Florida. The list goes on and on. We mentioned Charlottesville. So I think we have to wait to see before we can declare whether President Trump has expanded ethnic communities in the Republican Party. I think time will tell on that. And you have said he has, when I mentioned the juxtaposition, you've got the things that the president has done, and then you've got the things that the president has said, which is that he has done more for African Americans in this country than any president since Abraham Lincoln. I think we will find out later tonight, tomorrow, down the road, whether communities of color in this country actually believe that and feel like this is a White House that has embraced them with open arms over the last 4 years.
Lots more vote to be seen. It's coming up on 8:47 here in the East Coast. Right now, Donald Trump has won 5 states, 42 electoral votes. Joe Biden, 6 states and 44 electoral votes. We'll be right back.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming non-stop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
Now, it could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. I feel something stop when I see
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
feel something when I see you.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Wednesday night, get ready for
A con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented. Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of the killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News, World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney Plus.
Coming up at 9 p.m. in these polls, of course, in 26 states. Want to take a deeper dive now again on the state of Georgia. Tom, why don't you go up to the map here? Let's take a look at Georgia right now. 26% of the expected vote in right now. Donald Trump has a sizable lead.
Yeah, let's take a look at the absentee early vote right now, 78%. Donald Trump, again, breaking the conventional wisdom. We only have about 31% of that early vote in reporting, but he's up nearly 10 points in the early vote. That's good news for Trump. So as we take a look at the map, you see a lot of these red counties. We're going to take a close look, George, throughout the night right here. This is Georgia's black belt. The black belt cuts through several southern states. It's an area of high concentration of African American counties, but they really haven't had turnout since President Barack Obama ran for president so many years ago. There's a lot of red counties in there. That's not great news for Joe Biden at this hour. We're keeping a close eye on places like Cobb. This is the greater Atlanta metro region. Joe Biden at 63% right now. He's really overperformed from where Hillary Clinton was. This is where Democrats need to win. State of Georgia. I said this earlier. I'll say it again. It's so important. 50% of the vote is going to come from this area right here at the greater suburbs at 43-56. Joe Biden has to feel pretty comfortable right now. A lot of the vote is out, but again, if he can win Atlanta, the metro region, and build off Hillary Clinton's lead she had 4 years ago, it could be a good night in Georgia.
I want to go to TJ Holmes, and TJ, I know I'd read something that came in over the wire. I wonder if you have any more information. There seemed to be a voting issue in Fulton County, Georgia.
Yeah, so you remember earlier, George, I told you things had gone smoothly here. Well, about that. Well, it turns out there was actually a pipe that burst at State Farm Arena, which caused a delay in processing ballots. Let me explain what that means. State Farm Arena is where the Atlanta Hawks play ball, smack dab in the middle of downtown Atlanta, which is in Fulton County. So you have the largest polling station, which is also in the largest county in this state, had an issue this morning with a pipe burst, a water leak essentially. So there was a delay in processing ballots there so they could clean up the area. Now, I talked to Fulton County. This caused about a 2-hour delay. Talked to the Secretary of State's office. They said it was about 4 hours. So we could see a delay in getting some of those numbers of those ballots. Important to note, none of the ballots were damaged or destroyed. That is not what we're talking about. They just had to get the workers out of that area for a little while to get it cleaned up. And what we're talking about here is processing of ballots. So it just slowed down this process of getting those things ready to go and then tabulated. So we don't know how long that could take. Now, of course, Fulton County is a Democratic stronghold here, so not necessarily in question, as some would argue, or much debate about how things could go. But if we have a close race, those numbers could be important as we move forward and could delay us, George, in the night and deciding or determining what the numbers are. And one more important note. We know that absentee ballots, talk so much about early voting and the absentee here in Georgia, set all of those records. Well, the state of Georgia tells us that 225,000 absentee ballots arrived today. So those could take several days to process. Again, all of this is only important if it turns out to be a really tight race when we're going to get some of those numbers, George.
TJ Holmes, thanks. Let's take another look at Ohio. 50% of the vote is in right now. And right now, Tom Yamas, big lead for Joe Biden.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting because this would change the election and the race at this hour right now. The numbers are he's winning in all the areas he needs to win. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And if we go in a little closer, Cuyahoga County, one of the biggest counties in Ohio, you can see he's overperforming. It's the same story in Franklin, Columbus, the capital. Joe Biden at 76. He's up nearly 16%. But before Democrats get way too happy on this, I got to show you guys something. Let me click back on Ohio, go to the absentee vote here. Look at those numbers, George. 20%. He's up 20 points, nearly 20 points on the early vote. That's really important. That's maybe one of the reasons why Democrats look like they're doing really well in Ohio. That being said, though, I will say I'm looking at several counties, especially in this area up here near Toledo, the Rust Belt area. These are counties that President Trump flipped 4 years ago. Tonight, I can count 4 or 5. Joe Biden's on top.
Okay. Heidi Heitkamp, what do you make of what you're seeing in Ohio?
Well, I think it's great news for Joe Biden because it speaks to what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, all up in the Great Lakes. And I think that it doesn't surprise me. I think that one thing we haven't talked enough about is women suburban voters. And we're seeing them turn out in record numbers. We're seeing this kind of wave there that's going to change the outcome, I think.
Heidi Heitkamp, thanks very much. Coming up at 9 p.m. polls about to close in 14 more states. We'll be right back.
Coming up, we're tracking all the results, with polls set to close in 14 more states, including the pivotal battleground states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Texas on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Wednesday night, get ready for
A con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from?
Buckle up, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Ames, straightforward.
Stand down.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney Plus.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen a red Focus.
The steering wheel's getting stiff. Lock the door.
We're fine.
Be afraid. Be afraid. Be afraid.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, free on Apple Podcasts.
This is an ABC News special. It all comes down to this. The choices couldn't be more different.
We're never going to lock down again. We locked down, we understood the disease, and now we're open for business. I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
9 p.m. in the East, polls have just closed in 14 more states. We've said it so many times this year, 2020, it's a divided country, and at 9 p.m. in the East, it's a divided vote for president right now. Joe Biden has won 6 states. Donald Trump has won 6 states, 48 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 44 for Joe Biden. As we said, the polls have just closed in 14 more states, and we can project that Joe Biden will win the state of New York. Donald Trump's 49 electoral votes there, not a surprise there in the state of New York. We cannot yet. And it's 38 electoral votes. It's a close race there right now with 65% of the vote in, 50 to 49 for Joe Biden in Michigan. This is one of those key states in the northern tier of the Midwest that Joe Biden has to win if he's going to be president this time around. And what we're seeing right now with Trump is ahead. And John Carl, this could be one of those areas in Michigan there where we're seeing that red mirage.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Michigan's going to count its votes slowly. It's going to count in-person day of voting earlier. You're going to see more of that early vote counted later, which is going to be good for Biden and for the Democrats.
Let's go to Juju Chang in Michigan. Coronavirus has been such a big issue there in the state of Michigan. And of course, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has seen protests over lockdowns, and of course, President Trump went in there and took that on head on.
Absolutely, George. And what is happening in the Sun Belt is making the upper Midwest all the more important. And we're seeing that it was a fight to the finish here in Michigan. President Trump's final stop was in Grand Rapids in a sort of 2016 superstitious nod to his come-from-behind victory. But it was a squeaker, only 11,000 votes. And that's where he's doubling down on his base, energizing his base. In fact, there were 15 visits from President Trump or a family member or a major surrogate in the past 2 weeks. And they're very excited about their ground game here. And yet, Joe Biden is trying desperately to seal the cracks in the blue wall. And he did that in part by outspending President Trump dramatically here. $27 million in spending by Trump, $52 million by Joe Biden. And not only that, Kamala Harris has been energizing the African-American vote here in Detroit, as well as his not-so-secret weapon, President Obama, campaigned with Joe Biden over the weekend to energize that all-American African vote. But what we're seeing in the exit polls is that crucial suburban vote, George. And what we're seeing is that began to shift in 2018. And Governor Whitmer, as you referred to, she issued some of the harshest lockdowns and ended up having a lot of blowback. There were those armed protests that you recall in that Capitol dome right behind me. And you see that it caused a lot of energy and anxiety on both sides of the debate. And what we saw is that President Trump began attacking Governor Whitmer. He referred to her as that woman from Michigan. And when I interviewed her, she said every time President Trump called her names, online hate and threats against her went up. And I think some of the suburban women I talked to reacted to that. The exit polling is showing that men favored President Trump in the suburbs, 56 to 42. But when you get a gender gap and you look at women, that number is the reverse, 55 to 44, more than a 10-point advantage for suburban women. And surely there are suburban women who still support President Trump and his economic policies. But when I went to the polls today, time and time again, the women I spoke to said they are tired of the fighting. They are tired of the name calling. One mom said to me, President Trump says and does things that if my kids did them, I would punish them. And when it came to handling of the pandemic, one lifelong Republican mom said to me, it brought out the mama bear in me, that when it comes to the health and safety of my kids, it made her turn away from the Republican Party for the first time and vote Democrat for president and vote for Joe Biden. How that will play out in Michigan, George, we'll see.
Juju Chen, thanks very much. The polls have also closed in the state of Arizona. I want to take a look at that right now. It's 11 electoral votes in play. This has become a battleground state as well. Longtime Republican state, but Joe Biden is putting up a fight there in the state of Arizona. Whit Johnson is there.
George, yes, Arizona. The polls are
in Arizona, and we spoke to the Secretary of State not long ago, and she told us that they expect things to run pretty smoothly here on election night. They have to release the first chunk of results about an hour from now after the polls close. They've been counting ballots in this state for 2 weeks already. The early vote, a big part of the story, an estimated 85% of all of the ballots cast came from early voters. Of course, Democrats think they have the edge on the early vote. The Trump campaign thinks that they got the edge on the votes that will come out today. But as you mentioned, this is a traditionally red state. Democrats hope that they can turn this state blue in a presidential election for the first time since 1996. That was Bill Clinton. Before that, you have to go all the way back to 1948 and Harry Truman. But it's turning into a true battleground state. There are changing demographics here, a population boom, including one of the fastest growing Latino populations in the country, making up more than 30% of the residents here in Arizona. But another thing to consider, perhaps the biggest prize of the night here in Arizona, is the independent vote. 1/3 of voters here in Arizona describe themselves as independents, and that's something that we're going to watch here tonight as we start to get results, George.
Okay, Rich Johnson, thanks very much for getting the results. Now we can project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Connecticut. No surprise there. Of course, Joe Biden will win the state of Connecticut. You see him filling in the blue up there in the Northeast right now, but more polls are closing, including in the state of Minnesota. That is a state that Donald Trump made a play for. His team has said that they believe they could flip that from blue to red this time around. Alex Johnson is there. Alex Perez is there, excuse me. Alex?
Hey, George. Yeah. So Minnesota really has become a sort of second-tier battleground state. Trump losing Minnesota by just 45,000 votes last time. That's less than 2% of votes. So both campaigns have been spending a lot of time here in this state, both here just on Friday. They really feel like these 10 electoral votes could go in any direction. Now, the state of Minnesota has not selected a Republican for president in about half a century. But this year things are a little bit different. You can see this mural behind me here. You can see that's a picture of George Floyd. There are murals like this across the country. What happened here in May with the death of George Floyd really motivated and inspired people to become involved, particularly young people. And so we're seeing some of that here play out in this state, especially in the blue counties, in Ramsey County and Hennepin County. You see a lot of those young people coming out to vote. And I can tell you, in talking to some of those young people, George, they're not happy with either candidate. They don't like Biden and they don't like Trump, but they realize that they have only certain options in front of them right now at this point. Now, President Trump and his campaign really playing to the law and order message to a lot of people here in Minnesota. You might remember back when those protests first happened here at the beginning of the summer after George Floyd was killed, a police station was burned down to the ground. Several blocks here in Minneapolis were reduced to rubble. And so that message of law and order, of defending police officers and what law enforcement stands for is really resonating a lot of people here. But then you also have that other side of people who want to see change. We've talked to a lot of people, George, who say racial equality, racial justice, those are the most important things that are motivating them when they head to the polls, when they cast their ballots today.
Okay, Alex, thanks very much. Let's stay in the Midwest now. Let's take a look at Wisconsin. 10 electoral votes to play. Of course, Donald Trump won there by 22,000 votes last time around. Deborah Roberts is there in Wisconsin. We saw those, we've seen this COVID surge in Wisconsin over the last...
Wisconsin. But I have to tell you, if there's a state that's going to cause a little bit of heartburn tonight, it will be Wisconsin. And that is because of absentee and mail-in votes. Usually about 6% of the votes would actually be handled that way. This time, about 60% of the votes, George, were done early, absentee, mail-in. And that means about 2 million votes now have to be handled. And unlike Georgia, which got a chance to prep some of those votes a little bit early, Wisconsin had to wait until this morning, 7 a.m. So they just got started processing all of those votes this morning. The Election Commission folks tell us it's probably going to be a late evening, but that does not mean that there are going to be problems. They are going to be working very hard. And as you said, the big problem is COVID. I mean, this state is getting slammed by the coronavirus. Almost 6,000 new cases, 52 deaths today. It is a big problem, and it is an issue that has been hovering over this state. So for that reason, a lot of people are just sending their votes in. We saw a woman dropping her ballot off this afternoon. The polls just closed, so they're going to be processing those votes overnight. And in Milwaukee, for instance, there are poll watchers there. Each party got 15 people standing around watching all of those votes as they come in. But they, so far, so good. The weather has been good. 2 weeks ago, there was snow. Today, there was sunshine. So at the very least, things seem to be moving fairly smoothly here in Wisconsin, but it may be a long night. George?
Okay, Deborah Roberts, thanks very much. We're just hearing now that we can project the state of South Dakota for Donald Trump. Again, not a surprise right there. South Dakota will go to Donald Trump tonight. So seeing the red states are filling in red, the blue states are filling in blue. All the battlegrounds still 5% of the vote in. Tom, it's getting a little closer now.
Yes, as it is right now. We're still waiting for some areas to come in, including Akron and some of the suburbs outside of Cleveland. But looking at the map right now, the way it looks, it actually resembles more 2012 than it does 2016. And that's good news for Democrats right now. A lot of the swing counties that President Trump won 4 years ago, they've swung back for Joe Biden. One county that we're looking at right here, this is Delaware County, the suburbs outside of Columbus. This used to be a Republican bastion. You can see President Trump won it 4 years ago. Look at these numbers now, and we have 75% of the vote in. Joe Biden's doing really, really well. He's up, do the math here, 40. He's up 13% just in Delaware County. One thing I do want to note, and we've talked about this earlier, about whether it's a red or blue mirage. When we look at the early vote, Democrats are doing very well in Ohio with the early vote. Joe Biden on top 60% to 40%. So 20 points right there. But from the momentum and from the blue counties, from the big cities, Joe Biden is winning where he needs to be.
Okay, Tom, thanks very much. Cecilia Vega, as we've said, Ohio, a must-win for the president.
A must-win for the president, George, and our team is in touch with sources close to the president. And I got to tell you, we are hearing that the Trump campaign is becoming increasingly worried right now about what they are seeing in that state. They are working here in the White House in these war rooms where they are watching these returns come in, and they are becoming increasingly nervous about what they're seeing out of Ohio. One senior source telling our team it's much closer than it should be. They're kicking themselves, frankly, for not having gone there more. The Trump team did not hold any rallies in Ohio over 2020 compared to holding 5 in Pennsylvania just this past weekend alone there in the final weeks because of this cash crunch that they were campaigning, foregoing millions of dollars in ads. And George, you'll remember this in the grand scheme of the things we cover here in this White House, but worth pointing out on a night like tonight. Remember this controversy from just a few months ago where President Trump called for a ban on Goodyear, on the brand Goodyear, after he accused the company of banning its employees wearing his MAGA gear. Goodyear is based in Akron, Ohio, George.
As is LeBron James, and he's been quite active in this campaign as well. Mary Bruce, we saw that Joe Biden at the last minute went from Pennsylvania on the final day, hoping to make a play for this state.
Yeah, they believed that what they were seeing on the ground showed that this state was in play, that it was increasingly competitive, and that appears to be reflected in these numbers that we are seeing so far tonight. Biden's team is encouraged very much so by what they are seeing coming out so far. And I want to hit on a point that Tom was making about suburban women, because in these preliminary exit data, suburban women backed Trump by 9 points in 2016. But tonight in this preliminary data, suburban women are narrowly backing Biden. That bodes well for Biden's team, not just in states like Ohio, but also as you look to those other critical Midwestern states like Michigan and Wisconsin, possibly even in Pennsylvania, as they try to rebuild that blue wall that Donald Trump smashed through 4 years ago. And it also speaks, George, to the power of women voters who tonight could determine the outcome of this election. They were critical to delivering Donald Trump the White House. Women voters tonight could be critical to taking it back.
Martha Raddatz, you spoke to a lot of them on the road this summer.
I spoke to a lot of them, and I can tell right now that there are a group of women I spoke to around those counties, around Columbus, Ohio, that Tom Yamas was talking about, who are very happy tonight. A group of women, several of them were Republicans, and they switched to Joe Biden. It was right on that character issue once again, character, chaos. Juju Chang talked about that as well. That's what those women were concentrating on. And let me channel the late Cokie Roberts here for a minute, George. This is the centennial of the 19th Amendment. Women have only had the vote in this country for 100 years, and as Mary said, they may determine that tonight. But you also want to listen to what Donald Trump has been saying to women, especially suburban women, which doesn't land very well with many of them. I'm also getting your husbands back to work. They want to get back to work, right? You know how many women are in the workforce. In 2019, 76 million women aged 16 and over were employed, George.
Martha Raddatz, you channeled Cokie well. We miss her tonight. David, what do the exits say about Ohio right now?
Well, it's really fascinating about Ohio. I wonder if we're going to come back to what Heidi Heitkamp said earlier with President Trump talking down the mail-in vote across this country in the weeks preceding the election, that perhaps this is what we're seeing unfolding in Ohio tonight, because the exit polling tells a different story. A lot of the issues that Joe Biden sort of laid out, he said, we had to take care of the virus first. The economy will come with it second. The Ohio exit polls show that they believe fix the economy, open the country first before the coronavirus. They prefer Trump to Biden handling the economy. They prefer Trump to Biden handling the pandemic. So given what we're seeing in the exit polls, and again, one of the other trends that we're also seeing is Donald Trump is not underwater with approval in Ohio. It's one of the strongest showings tonight in the preliminary exit polls so far. So this would show portends a good night for President Trump in Ohio. I do wonder if the get out the vote and the early voting campaign by the Biden camp, the push for an early vote is actually helping there significantly tonight.
A lot of vote yet to come in the state of Ohio, 51-47 right now. Nate, let's take a look back at your forecast and show everybody what happens if Ohio goes from red to blue if Joe Biden happens to win.
So what I have here is if Trump wins Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, which gets a more competitive race, but Biden counters by winning Ohio, then that all of a sudden undoes those positive results for Trump. You'll see the numbers come up here. Biden's going to, I think, wind up here north of 99%, because if Trump loses Ohio, he's going to lose in all probability Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, which are bluer states, and that makes for a losing map for him.
And that it really does show the importance right now, because you came into the night showing Donald Trump with about a 10% chance. So even if you give him those three key states we've been looking at in the Southeast right now, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida, you flip Ohio and it turns everything around.
Right. So he has to win both paths, right? He has to win the southern path and hold the states that he flipped from Clinton in 2016 in the north. If he only does one, then it'll be close. It will not be a Biden landslide, but Biden would still be elected president.
It is so close right now. Nate Silver, thanks very much. We have to take another quick break.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now it could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop. When I see
you were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
When I see you.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of the killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know? You need to know.
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now imagine getting yours like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Coming up on 920 in these, that's what it looks like right now in the key state of Florida. 93% of the expected vote in, and Donald Trump has opened up about a 300,000 vote lead over Joe.
Well, I predicted all along that Donald Trump was going to win Florida. He's right on the issues, and he's done an unbelievable job with his Hispanic vote. You can look at those Miami-Dade numbers and see how the state completely changed. This race completely changed when, Donald Trump put all that effort into dealing with the Castro regime, the Maduro regime, and it paid off with the Hispanic vote in our state. I won the Hispanic vote, and look, in the end, it's going to look like Trump did a really great job with the Hispanic vote.
Well, he was able to pull away by even more than you did in 2018, correct so far?
Oh, absolutely. But look, in Florida, we don't like high taxes, and Joe Biden's talking about the biggest tax increase in the history of the country. That doesn't go well. We like our law enforcement. We're a 29-year low crime rate. The Democrats' defunding police didn't help Joe Biden. The economy is really important to Floridians, and Donald Trump is in a better position on that. And again, just doing what Donald Trump has done against the Castro regime and Maduro is just the opposite of what Obama and Biden did. So it's helping Trump a whole bunch in this state. I thought he'd have a big win. I put up an ad for him to get the vote out. They got the vote out today to make sure he's going to have a big win.
Senator Scott, thanks very much for your time. We can now project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Colorado votes. Matt Gutman is there in Denver, Colorado. Matt, what do you make of it?
It's not a very big surprise here. Not very unusual. This is something that has been forecast all along. I want to give you a sense of where we are. This is the polling station here in Denver, and what you're looking at looks like watching the paint dry. It looks boring, but all of these people are working within the system to count the ballots. It's incredible, the tenderness with which they are caring for each ballot. A lot of talk tonight about whether or not the elections are rigged, whether or not there has been fraud. I can give you a sense that here it is working like a well-oiled machine. George.
We know how to count votes by mail in Colorado. I've done it for a long time, Matt. Thanks very much. 9 states for Joe Biden, 7 for Donald Trump, 89 to 51 in the Electoral College. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Go, Eagles.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming. Plus.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before. Meet the prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families. Living large, but
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from?
Buckle up, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is the con. All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. ABC News, straightforward. Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election, with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of teenagers.
That's right. Last seen a red Focus.
The steering wheel's getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Be
Got ourselves a predicament.
when the night has come.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney Plus.
Live from ABC News election headquarters in New York City, here again, George Stephanopoulos.
9:30 now in Lee, so we can project two more states now for President Trump. Donald Trump will win the state of Alabama. With 10% of the vote in, of course, that is a strong Republican state. Big Senate race there as well. Republicans hoping to pick up a Senate seat there. Tommy Tuberville over Doug Jones. We don't have a projection on that yet, but we can say that Donald Trump will also win the state Dakota tonight, so he's picked up two more states there for the president. We see 89 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 63 for Donald Trump right now. And right now, let's pull up the state of Virginia, take a look at what we're seeing now. And right now, Tom Yamas, we're still seeing Donald Trump with a large lead, but only 41.
Interesting right now in Virginia. As you know, Democrats have been winning the state. Let's blow it up here. A lot of these red the rural counties. As you go further west, you're going to get into coal country. But I want to blow this up here. This is the Democratic suburbs around D.C., this area right here. You have Alexandria, Fairfax, Arlington. These are areas where Democrats need to run up the score, and that's how they end up winning the state. Places like Fairfax, it's actually pretty close when you look at 4 years ago. Joe Biden's underperforming, and that's why I say the numbers are a little strange right now in Virginia, Prince William County. Here's another thing. It's neck and neck. This was a county that Clinton clearly won 4 years ago. So it's sort of interesting when we look. I was trying to see if this was part of the early vote. Maybe Republicans came out to vote early there. Unfortunately, right now, all we have is that 57% of the vote is going to be early vote. We don't see who's on top right now, George.
Okay, Tom Yamas, thanks very much. Let's bring in Senator Tim Kaine. Tim, we were just hearing from Tom Yamas, so it shows we don't have a lot of the vote in. I take it you're feeling a bit more confident about your state?
Yeah, George, the AP called Virginia at 736 because of the early vote totals are so strongly Democratic. About 70% of the 2016 total got cast early, and we know who those voters are. But just by way of comparison, the AP called Virginia at 11 o'clock in 2008, at 1 a.m. in 2012, and at 10:30 in 2016. So calling Virginia 3 hours earlier suggests very, very strong night in Virginia. Mark Warner's won big. We feel good about our congressional races. And because Virginia is now heavily suburban, we think that also probably bodes well for suburbs in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Philly, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the upper Midwest. So we feel really good in Virginia. We hope it sends a message and is an indicator elsewhere.
Of course, you were part of the Hillary Clinton campaign 4 years ago. What feels different to you this time around?
I mean, the tremendous surge of early vote. I mean, that shows not only people taking and, trying to protect themselves from COVID, but it also shows intense energy. And George, as you know, we know who the early voters are. We don't know how they voted, but if a Tim Kaine votes early, we can see, well, Tim Kaine has only voted ever in Democratic primaries. That's a Democratic vote. And we're seeing this really strong early vote in many states that gets often reported a little bit later, even if it comes in early. Early vote is strong. The early vote is disproportionately young people compared to 4 years ago. And then states that are battlegrounds that never have been, Georgia, Arizona, Texas, for God's sake. We are competitive in states where it's very, very tough.
So you're feeling good about the whole night, not just your state?
Yes, absolutely.
Senator Kaine, thanks very much for your time tonight. We can project now the state of South Carolina is going to go to Donald Trump. South Carolina, strong red state. Donald Trump won it 4 years ago. He's going to win it again tonight. Jay Norman is in South Carolina.
Yeah, hey, George, we expected this. This is a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since Trump's support has remained steady, and exit polls showing that the president approval rating is about 55%. But one thing that we're watching big here is, of course, the Senate race here. It is a fierce battle, and Republicans are on defense. Few places is that more true than here in South Carolina. Think about this. Lindsey Graham, he is a household name, a 17-year incumbent in a Republican stronghold. He was expected to easily win re-election a few months ago, but now he's in the fight of his political life. He's been on TV, forced to essentially beg for donations to try to beat Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison at one point raised more than $57 million in just over 3 months. He is one of those candidates that Democrats are hoping can help them flip some red seats blue. So that is what we're watching tonight here, George.
Okay, Jeanette, thanks very much. We can't project that yet, but you just heard that chime. That means we can't project that in Colorado, the Senate race in Colorado, former Governor John Hickenlooper is going to defeat Cory Gardner, the incumbent Republican senator. So that is a pickup for the Democrats tonight in the Senate. John Hickenlooper has defeated Cory Gardner, John Karl. Magic numbers in the Senate: 3 if Biden wins for the Democrats, 4 if he doesn't.
Yeah, and this was probably their top target to pick up. Cory Gardner tied himself quite closely to Donald Trump, actually tried to avoid comment whenever there was anything controversial. Hickenlooper, the former governor, of course, briefly ran for president, recruited to run for this seat. No surprise that this is the first pickup. They've got to pick up a few more.
Matt Gutman?
Just adding to what John was saying, Hickenlooper, two-time mayor, two-time governor of the state, beloved. He ran for president briefly, then decided to run for Senate. This is not a surprise, but as Janae was saying, this is a key state that the Democrats wanted to pick up to turn from red to blue. And frankly, this is a purple state that is leaning blue, George. And Cory Gardner didn't have much of a chance. He voted towards the GOP in the 9% of the time in a state that we were saying is purple leaning blue. It was unlikely that he was going to win this. The polls had favored Hickenlooper all along, but this is one state, possibly another in the Rocky Mountain region, Montana, that could flip from red to blue tonight. George.
Matt Cummins, thanks very much. Mary Bruce, your day job is covering Capitol Hill, and I wanted you to pick up on what John Carl was just talking about there. Cory Gardner, one of those senators who, whenever President Trump got in a little bit of trouble, he'd disappear.
It was amazing how all of a sudden Cory Gardner would become very hard to find in the halls of the Capitol in those moments. Look, as John was saying, he was viewed as the most vulnerable Republican tonight. There are several others that Democrats are keeping a close eye on. And I have to say, George, Republicans know that there is a very real risk that they could lose their Senate majority tonight. In addition to Colorado, which we now know the result in, they're keeping a very close eye on Arizona. They feel very strongly, Democrats do, that they have a chance to defeat Martha McSally in that race. They're also feeling optimistic about possibly Iowa, Maine, and North Carolina. The Senate race in Georgia is now looming as a very real possibility, with actually two races there tonight, and both Republican senators at risk there. The Democrats can see that they are likely to lose a seat in Alabama, Doug Jones's seat. That means, if you go back to the math here, if they lose that seat, they would then need to pick up 4 seats. Democrats would if Joe Biden wins, because in that instance, Kamala Harris would then become the tiebreaker as vice president. If Donald Trump wins, that means the Democrats would then have to pick up 5 seats if they do lose that race in Alabama.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Pennsylvania. We've been calling that the most critical battleground of the night tonight. 19% of the expected vote is in right now. Joe Biden has a large lead. And Tom, why don't you try to run through some of the key counties in Pennsylvania that we're going to be watching tonight?
George, we're just looking at Pennsylvania a little closely, and the numbers are really all over the place. There's not really a narrative we can really talk about. This point. Look, for instance, I'll give you Scranton right here. Lackawanna, Donald Trump is on top in Joe Biden's hometown, and he's overperforming there for Republicans. We go just south, Lucerne County. This is Wilkes-Barre. This is a swing county that Donald Trump won 4 years ago. Tonight, Biden's on top, but again, only 29% of the vote in. On the big cities where Democrats really Allegheny, Pittsburgh, you can see how high Joe Biden's there. That's the type of number Democrats want to make sure they can hold in Pennsylvania, not only in Pittsburgh, but also in Philadelphia. Let me open this up a little more as we get to Philadelphia and the suburbs. George, look, I want people to have a freak out here. 93%, that's obviously incredible, but there's only 9% of the vote in at this moment. Let me squeeze this out a little bit. We'll look at one of the suburb counties, the exurb counties around Philadelphia, where Democrats have to run up the score. Well, Joe Biden's doing good, but again, George, it's so early. There's nothing really to pull.
Do we have anything from Erie County? And then I want to bring John in.
Yeah, Erie County, we have Donald Trump, barely won this just by a percentage point 4 years ago, but it was one of those swing counties that Obama won. And you can see right now, John, it's neck and neck, but 4% in, 4% in.
But I've got to say, if you go back to the Philly suburbs, Montgomery County, Delaware County, you see Biden with nearly an 80-point lead. It's 16% of the vote in. What's really important here, though, George, as I understand it, almost all of the vote that has been counted are people that voted today on Election Day. Pennsylvania didn't start counting
in those Collier County.
Yes. This is day of voting, so they still have to count all of the mail-in vote. They didn't start opening the envelopes until today. That's going to take a long time. It's actually going to take several days. That mail-in vote is expected to really lean heavily towards Joe Biden. So I think it's interesting. It's still a small amount, no doubt, but I think that it's interesting already in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
It used to be swing areas. Now they're trending deep blue.
Early indication, again, 16-17% of the expected vote in, but it's day of vote.
We have some exit polls for Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, when you compare it to Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania actually in the exit polls showed Donald Trump's worst performance so far tonight when it comes to his approval rating. Let's dive in here and see what the exit polls show us. Again, these are preliminary, but the exit polls, as we mentioned earlier in the night, do reflect both, as John Carl was mentioning, people who voted today and those who were voting early in person. As you can see, let's try to refresh that and see if the job performance comes up. 52% disapproving of Donald Trump performance. Whether or not to contain the pandemic first or rebuild the economy, you can see overwhelmingly they say we've got to take care of this coronavirus in the U.S. And they say that Joe Biden is the best to handle that. When you look at the economy, Donald Trump and Joe Biden neck and neck in Pennsylvania. The most important issue in Pennsylvania, the economy, pandemic, they're behind. It's interesting. Let's look at independents in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden owning independents so far as the exit polls are concerned in Pennsylvania.
Chris Christie, neighboring state of yours in New Jersey, always going to be an uphill battle for the president, but essential.
Listen, vital. Has to have it. And I do think, though, that the things that we're seeing still, I think this is very early, but there's underperformance in Philadelphia, even though those numbers don't indicate it. That's what I continue to hear. And so I think they're still feeling like they can turn out their day of vote in a way that's going to make it very close. No one's predicting a win there yet that I've heard, but no one's bemoaning a loss yet either.
Emmanuel, the Biden campaign probably spent more time, energy, money, focus on Pennsylvania than any other state.
There's no doubt about it. And the vice president, as you remember in your town hall, when a guy stood up and was, I know you're a sheriff. I mean, he's got to feel like a precinct captain or a county exec. They look at these numbers, and I would say there's a regional thing that's starting to happen. You look at the Ohio number, you look at Pennsylvania numbers, they're early, but there are trend lines where Joe Biden is outperforming in the suburbs. He's outperforming among working class, and he's also outperforming in the rural areas, even though you don't count it, just minimizing the losses is doing well. So he is doing really in those areas well. The vote total in the sense of how many people show up in the suburbs versus working industrial areas versus urban is going to be what's really interesting. Because I think the urban areas may not be performing to the kind of baseline of what people were expecting.
Are you seeing that across the country now? The urban area is not performing as well?
That's not what we're seeing, and that's what I want to make sure I reserve comments. We see that we're seeing a lot of, particularly in Ohio, Hamilton County, Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, huge turnout there. I mean, we're running not just on the presidential, but down ticket. We're winning all these races down ticket as well, and so I think we'll just have to wait and see. Some of those places, like Cuyahoga, for instance, people were still in line up until about a half an hour ago. In Cuyahoga County.
For tonight. Wait and see. We're going to be doing that with every state all night long. Sarah Fagan, the Trump campaign was hoping after that last debate where they thought that Joe Biden made a blunder by talking about ending fossil fuels and the issue of fracking. They thought that could give them headway in Western Pennsylvania and coal country in these final 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think it probably will give him some headway. Whether he wins it or not, we'll see. I think Pennsylvania, to me, is the best case of the mirage, the red and blue mirage. We don't know whether these are early votes, whether these are absentee votes, whether they're day of votes yet. And so, I would go back to something Nate Silver said, has been repeating over and over tonight. Wait till an entire jurisdiction is in before you get too excited.
I think we have to do that. There's no question about that. Eva Pilgrim, you spent all in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's right, George. And specifically with moms, a lot of them telling me they usually avoid talking about politics amongst their mom groups, but this year that just wasn't possible because so many of the things that are very political right now directly impact them and their children. In their text chains, you can see what some of those things are. They're talking about masking their children. They're talking about virtual learning. Are you sending your kid back to school? Should we go on vacation this summer? Those were all the discussions that they were having. And a lot of these moms telling me that, previously in other elections, they weren't really that plugged in. They've maybe voted in a presidential election prior, but this year they thought it was very important to vote. George?
Eva Pilgrim, thanks very much. Let's go to Nate Silver before we go to break. Nate, let's take one more look at your magical flourish and call it magical, your very scientific forecast there. And what happens if Pennsylvania flips this year, went to Donald Trump 4 years ago, goes to Joe Biden this time around?
So again, I'm going to make things a bit more suspenseful. Give Donald Trump Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, but then if you give Biden Pennsylvania, it's going to show the numbers going up. We'll see where it calculates here in a second. It's not quite the same as Ohio because it's a little bit of a more purple state. But you see Biden's up to 91% despite losing the South. If he wins back Pennsylvania, they have to hold Wisconsin.
So that's really it kind of brings you back to where you were at the beginning of the night.
It narrows the range, right? If Biden wins Pennsylvania, I think they're not going to fall apart from the Midwest. He's also not going to have any type of landslide victory. It would bring the probability back. It would mean that you have a close election where Biden is favored, but it's this kind of wide range of possible outcomes.
Chris? Just heard from Republican leadership in Ohio that Trump has now pulled ahead in Ohio and that they believe Trump will win between 1.5 and 2 points.
Right now, what we're seeing on our board right now is 64% of the expected vote in. Joe Biden just ahead by a little bit, but you're saying you're getting that from your sources right now inside Ohio. They're looking at the vote that they're still waiting on, and they believe, at least we're not ready to say that, they believe that Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio. Have to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Stand down. I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney Plus.
Friday nights, 9 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, the hunt. True crime, 2020. Friday nights, 9 Central on ABC. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News, World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before. Meet the prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families. Living large, but
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
where was all this money coming from?
Buckle up, just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con. All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Oh, look at the blue flag.
Hey, there's my guys. Made it through.
Change is difficult, but this is my home. This is where I belong. I'm
not going to bail on.
Rebuilding Paradise, network premiere Sunday at 9 on National Geographic.
Hello? This is Highway Patrol. You were looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen a red Focus.
The steering wheel's getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
We are back now. ABC News election headquarters in New York, coming up on 10 p.m. in the evening. There you see the electoral map. Joe Biden has won 9 states, 89 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 10 states and 72 electoral votes. All the big swing states still in play right now. Let's take a look now at the state of Georgia, one of the key battlegrounds at the end of this campaign. 16 electoral votes, 46% of the vote in right now, and Donald Trump has a really sizable lead right now. Tom Yamas, what more can we say about where Georgia is right now?
We can't stop talking about Georgia yet because it's still very, very early. And the reason why I say look at Atlanta right now. We're still waiting for a lot of the vote to come out of some of these huge counties where Democrats are going to run up the vote. Joe Biden's doing well in these counties around Atlanta where he needs to win. He's building off Hillary Clinton's lead that she had here. He's expanding the map even further. The problem for Joe Biden is that the red counties, President Trump's base, and this is something we're seeing throughout the country, at least in some of the big battleground states, President Trump's base is showing up and they're voting. And a lot of this, you see all the red around here, almost the same as 2016. The blue counties are the same. What we have to find out, what we have to figure out is what the counties at the end of the night in the Atlanta counties. If Joe Biden can run up the score there, he can tighten this up. But President Trump has got to be happy with this number at this hour right now, but to get a lot of the vote out in Atlanta.
Lindsay Davis, what are you saying in Georgia?
You know, Georgia is 6th overall when it comes to the total number of coronavirus cases in our country. I think that one good image is that Governor Kemp today dropped off his ballot in a ballot drop box because he's quarantining because he came into
into contact with somebody who tested positive on Friday, though it's worth noting that he also did take a rapid test and is subsequently tested negative. But look, we're seeing the same thing that we saw in North Carolina, where the three counties that are hardest hit by coronavirus, all are counties that voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. We'll remember that Governor Kemp was criticized for trying to open up Georgia early, and he then had that lawsuit against Keisha Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, when she implemented that mask mandate, which he later dropped. But what's interesting is, black voters make up 32% of the eligible voting population in Georgia, and a lot has been said tonight about the black voters not turning out, and I do think that it's relevant to talk about the disproportionate effect on black and brown communities. Of course, black people make up 13% of the population, but 20% of the COVID deaths, 1 out of 900 black people have died as a result of coronavirus.
Okay, Lindsay Davis, thanks very much. Let's take another look at the state of Texas right now. Not expected to be a battleground this year, but it is close right now with about 76% of the expected vote in. Donald Trump has about a 2-point lead over Joe Biden right now. Tom, what stands out?
Well, let's get that lead, George, as I put Texas here in the middle of the map so we can see it a little bigger. Absentee, basically neck and neck, George. Look at that right there. Democrats had to build a lead on the early vote, especially in a state like Texas, but Republicans showed up early as well, and they voted there in Texas. Look, a lot of red counties. Texas has been Republican for a very long time. Jimmy Carter was the last Democrat to win this state. Some things that are good for Democrats are around the Dallas County suburb areas, and we'll show you why. So Fort Worth, which is usually a Republican stronghold, we clear this out here. Tarrant County, 49%. It's neck and neck. President Trump won this by almost 10 points 4 years ago. We go a little bit higher here to Denton County. It's the same story. President Trump underperforming there. But here's something that's interesting. In Houston, Harris County, the biggest county so far, it's essentially the same race as it was 4 years ago. Harris County, Houston, is an area where the Democrats have to run up the score even more if they have any chance of winning in Texas. Because you go to one of these red counties, George, look at that, in East Texas, it's 3-1, and it's like that all across East Texas.
That data is in Texas, man. It looks like John Cornyn is going to be returned as a Republican senator from Texas. But in the final days of his campaign, he started to break a little bit, uncharacteristically, from President Trump.
Well, I think he saw the numbers in Texas and the changing nature. He's catching up to the changing nature of the state of Texas, which, as we've talked about earlier, has gone from a solid red state to now, I think, a slightly red state. I think in the end, Biden's going to get really close in this state as I look at the numbers, very close, closer than any presidential candidate in 40 some odd years. But I don't think he's going to have enough. It's those last 2 or 3 points that are really hard, but he'll get really close. The other thing I'm going to say is what's played out in Florida is not playing out in Texas. So I think I counsel everybody to not interpret one place as meaning it's going to affect another place. The Hispanic vote here went really well for Joe Biden, much better than Donald Trump did here last time among the Hispanic vote. So I just counsel everybody that one state, Florida, may be about Florida, but it may not necessarily be about others.
What are we saying? Thank you, Matt, in the exit polls in Texas, David?
Similar to what Matt Dowd was saying, some pretty decent exit polls for the president, though, who's looking at this 55% approve. But to Matt, on the Latino vote, which is significant, 59% went for Joe Biden. Though I'll point out that Hillary Clinton had 61% 4 years ago. So Joe Biden still has some room to grow there if he's going to match her numbers.
Okay, coming up on 10 p.m. in the East, polls are going to close in 4 more states. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the White Power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite
To Oklahoma City, to Charlottesville, the new document special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Another week in America, a country facing a new test now.
The Iran airport, almost no one here. The last flight out of Rome.
This is the nursing home just outside Seattle. Dozens of people were just rushed off this cruise ship.
This is ground zero. It is shut down.
Another ambulance just pulled out.
Now they're headed to the hospital.
Time is of the essence.
You can see the ship behind you. The first time tests have been done here.
Morning, afternoon, evening, late night, 24/7. ABC News, there for you.
What the fuck,
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore the action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. I feel so. Please stop. When I see
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
feel something when I see you.
Let's do this.
How's quarantine going?
This is an ABC News special. America is voting in record numbers. So who will be your next president?
I'm the candidate of police officers, the middle class, law-abiding, hard-working American patriots, and others.
There will be no blue states or red states, just the United States. Our work is hard.
hard for those who vote against me as those who voted for me, because that's what a president's supposed to do.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Coming up on 10 p.m. in the East, and we have a long way to go on this Election Night 2020. That's where things stand right now. Joe Biden has won 9 states, 89 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 10 states, 72 electoral votes, but all of the big battlegrounds are still out there right now. The polls have still just closed in 4 additional states. Let's take a look at that right now. State of Iowa, key state in the middle of the country, 6 electoral votes. Key Senate race there as well. We cannot project a winner right there, but Kayna Whitworth is on the ground.
Hey, George, so 75% of rural voters cast their ballot for Donald Trump in 2016. It was certainly the case here in Iowa. And this is a place where they are focused on the economy and job security. And 1 in 5 of those jobs is in agriculture. And some of those people are really hurting right now, particularly the farmers. Their crops were decimated by weather. First, they saw the drought and then the windstorm. They're battling COVID-19. And of course, Trump's trade wars with China. Now, the federal government dumped $37 billion into aid to American farmers, but some that I spoke with here in Iowa simply said that's not enough. It doesn't make them whole, and their vote cannot be bought. One farmer in particular said he simply cannot overlook the lack of civility in the White House, and he cast his vote for Joe Biden. Now, it's important to note that, of course, Donald Trump has a lot of support. He was made an honorary member of the Iowa Corn Growers Association, which is a big deal here. I also spoke with one farmer who said, finally, someone is standing up to China. He said, quite frankly, that is something that the Obama-Biden administration didn't do, and so he was happy to cast his vote, of course, for Donald Trump. And George Johnson, we have a really tight Senate race here. It is neck and neck. The Republican incumbent, Joni Ernst, pulling ahead in recent polls. She's trying to fend off her Democratic challenger, Teresa Greenfield. Now, some surprised that it's such a battle here for Joni Ernst. She's a rising star in the Republican Party, and Teresa Greenfield, relatively unknown. She describes herself as a businesswoman and a scrappy farm girl, but the Democrats, George, dumped $94 million into her campaign, trying to flip that seat.
Kayna Whitworth, thanks very much. The polls have also closed in 3 more states. Polls have closed in the state of Nevada. 6 electoral votes in play. A lot of early voting in that state, but we cannot project a winner yet. Polls have also closed in the state of Utah. Again, a vote by mail state, but we cannot call that yet. 6 electoral votes. And the polls have closed in the state of Montana. 3 electoral votes. Key Senate race there as well, but not enough vote in to make a projection yet. So we want to take another look now at one of the key states in that so-called blue wall for the Democrats, the state of Michigan. Right now, 23% of the expected vote is in, and Donald Trump, it appears, Tom Yamas, has a huge lead right now.
Yeah, okay, so spoiler alert, it's a little funky right now in Michigan, okay? Let me show you why. The big reason, George, is because we don't have the early vote yet, okay? We don't have the early vote in yet, so we can't sort of work that into our numbers so far. But here's one reason why these numbers at this point don't make sense. Wayne County, you have Donald Trump on top, but there's only 3% of the vote in. Macomb County, which is one of those really key counties that President Trump won 4 years ago, the home of the Reagan Democrats, he's way up, but he's way up from where he was 4 years ago. So again, there's not enough vote in. We're going to be looking at places like Grand Rapids. This is Kent County, where President Trump won 4 years ago. But again, these are all areas that 2 years later, Gretchen Whitmer came in, that blue wave, and she was able to turn those counties back to blue.
John Carl, this, of course, we saw all the polls leading up to the election day in Michigan. Joe Biden was leading consistently by anywhere from 5 to 10 points in that state. This could be one of those red mirage states.
Yeah, it's either the polling was way wrong, was way off, and a lot of pollsters should be fired, or we're seeing a bit of a red mirage here. And remember, in the state of Michigan, there's a lot of mail-in voting, and the state, in most of the state, they don't even open the ballots until today. In some jurisdictions, they started opening them yesterday. It takes time. It takes a long time. They had warned us that the vote in Michigan is likely to take well beyond tonight. So I would expect as that mail-in vote is counting, that's Democratic vote, that margin those numbers change pretty dramatically.
Let's take a look at the state of Michigan, of Wisconsin as well right now. Let's pull that up. 30% of the expected vote in. A little bit closer there, Tom. More of the vote has been counted, but Donald Trump is slightly ahead.
Yeah, slightly ahead. This is one of the states he won. It was very close here, 23,000 votes. We're going to be talking about Milwaukee. This is so important. 15% of the total vote. Joe Biden is where he needs to be, but he got to bring that number up a little bit. We only have about 30% of the vote in, so he can catch up there. We're also going to be talking about the WOW counties. This is Waukesha, Ozaukee, and some of the others, Washington as well. In Waukesha, President Trump won 4 years ago. This is actually a pretty good lead for him at 60% in. He's holding what he had 4 years ago. That's exactly what he has to do. Still not enough vote in. Like some of these swing counties I can take a look at here. Price, a tiny county, Donald Trump on top. His lead there, but only 12%. So it's a little hard to sort of pull data out of here. In Green Bay, Brown County, Donald Trump's sort of performing where he needs to be. But again, it's so little here. Kenosha, of course, we want to talk about as well because it had such a big role when we're talking about the social justice that swept across the country with the Jacob Blake thing there. Donald Trump on top. He won this just barely 4 years ago. He has a big lead right now. But again, I just think that there still needs a lot of vote to come in.
While we're looking at the blue wall, let's pick up Pennsylvania again. Let's take a check back in and see where Pennsylvania is. At this point, 23% of the expected vote in.
All right, we got a lot more vote in here, George. So let's take a look. We'll start with Scranton, Joe Biden's hometown, Lackawanna County.
Yeah, bitch, Joe Biden.
President Trump on top right there. He's going to like those numbers. Joe Biden is not just south of that Lucerne. This is Wilkes-Barre, PA. Joe Biden behind again there. He's doing better than Hillary Clinton. That's some good news. But President Trump's still on top. And we got to talk about Philadelphia again. We're still waiting for a lot of vote to come in here. Philadelphia. Giant margins, but this is what John Carl was just talking about. We just had the vote in only 9%. Those counties around, this is Bucks County, this is kind of Montgomery, excuse me. Let me see if we can find Bucks over here. Philadelphia, let's go over here. Yeah, Chester. Oh, we don't have Bucks yet. Chester's another big suburbs around the Philadelphia area. Joe Biden doing well there. Look, George, 23%. It's hard to kind of pull any kind of narratives at this point, so early in the night. Pittsburgh, we'll look at this because this is where Joe Biden has to run up the score, and there he has at 80%. That's a great number for him, but only 15%. George, it's tough at this hour.
It may be a little early to start to play out narratives, but Emmanuel, let's try to do it a little bit. This is looking a little bit right now like a replay of 2016.
Well, I'm not sure. The problem we have is you have so much early voting, and every state is different of when they count that. And so we're looking at counties, and you can extrapolate. I mean, you look at how close Ohio is. It's basically 6% right now, better than it was in 2016. But you look at, I think it's still going to come down to Pennsylvania. I think this entire election is going to be basically still what everybody thought going into it. But if you look at where Joe Biden was performing in Ohio, Akron, Toledo, Hamilton County, Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, you can extrapolate that that's very good news for both Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But again, each state counts their early votes. Some of them count before the day the polls close. And then in Pennsylvania, they don't start counting them. They have still got 3 more days of ballots to come in. So it's going to be very hard, but you do have trend lines that show a performance about working class old voters, suburban voters, college educated voters.
But so far, we haven't seen, Chris Christie, any big surprises yet. We haven't called any of the battlegrounds at all, and this is going to take
It's going to take some time. But, George, I think what we know now tonight, after 10 o'clock, is that the predictions that this was going to be a big Biden win are done. And really what this is going to come down to now is a few states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona. And, everything I'm seeing, we haven't called anything yet, but Republicans are very optimistic in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Iowa. And so it's really now
and Ohio.
And Ohio. So you're really coming down to Pennsylvania, Arizona, and get Ohio to a place where everybody is comfortable. So no one was predicting that 24 hours ago. They were predicting 3 to 330 votes for electoral votes for Joe Biden.
As you're talking, I just got some news in my ear, and I want to pull up the state of Arizona because this is potentially big news right here from the state of Arizona. 70% of the expected vote is in from Arizona. There was so much early vote in that state. More than 90% of the 2016 vote came in before election day. And one of the things you see right there is that Donald Trump is now losing the 70% of the expected vote into Joe Biden, 55 to 44. Tom Ramos, let's take a dive.
Yeah, George, George, at this hour, this is a major story and a major development. Not all the vote is in right now, but Maricopa County, this is going to be 3/4 of the total vote in all of Arizona. Joe Biden is on top. 4 years ago, this was a county, let me show you, 4 years ago, this was a county that President Trump won. It was tight, but that Joe Biden has this lead right now is very encouraging news for Democrats. We're going to go to the Democratic stronghold now of Tucson, Pima County. This is where, look at this number, George. I mean, these are the kind of numbers that Joe Biden would want in some of those other battleground states with 80% of the vote in. I'm going to go to this county right here, Yuma. President Trump barely won this. This is a border county. You have conservative agricultural families, but you also have a Latino vote there as well. President Trump looks like he's doing well. He's building on the lead he had 4 years ago. But again, Maricopa County, and Maricopa really it's a reflection of America. You have big cities like Phoenix. You have medium-sized cities like Scottsdale. Agricultural. You have the universities, the tourist areas. Joe Biden's looking at this number right now. It's going to make him very happy.
David, what do the exit polls say about Arizona?
A couple of things coming out of Arizona right now that are really interesting. First of all, for Democrats and Republicans in that state. So let's go right to that. 52% of independents, according to these exit polls, are going with Joe Biden. And when you go down some of these numbers, President Trump's job performance, 53% disapprove of his handling of the job as president. The opinion of Trump, 54% have an unfavorable view. So underwater, and more so than many of the states we've looked at so far. Look at Joe Biden, 50% favorable. And when you start getting into some of these key areas, COVID, Joe Biden has the edge in handling COVID. The economy, though, is Donald Trump's strength, it appears, in Arizona, at least according to the exit polls. Got a 3-point lead there, but still very close. One more key area, George, Hispanic and Latino vote. Joe Biden with 63% of the Latino vote tonight in Arizona.
According to the exit polls. John Cole, we know there are national trends at play here, but Arizona has been a deep red state. But as what Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics is local as well. John McCain, the late Senator John McCain, a target of Donald Trump for years. Sidney McCain endorsed Joe Biden. Jeff Flake, former senator from Arizona, Republican conservative, endorsed Joe Biden.
They both endorsed. Sidney McCain spoke at the Democratic convention, and those attacks on John McCain were relentless. He resisted taking the flag down to half staff when McCain died. None of that played well in Arizona. But I do want to have a note of caution on Arizona. Arizona is the reverse of what I was saying about Pennsylvania and Michigan. Arizona is where the county they've been counting the early vote for weeks. So as the day-in vote comes in, I expect Arizona to get a lot closer. And I think Governor Christie made an important point here. This is going to be a long night, and we're going to be a long week. It could be a long week. We're going to need patience. I don't see Joe Biden running away with any of those states in the Sun Belt. We'll see what happens in Arizona, but we're going to be waiting on Pennsylvania. We may be waiting on Michigan and Wisconsin.
George, go ahead. One interesting thing from Michigan Republican leadership that just came in the Senate race. In the vote by mail that's been counted so far, it's about 25% overall counted. Senator Peters is winning by about 20 points in the vote by mail. But on the election day voting, John James is winning by 22 points. So what they're looking at least in the first 25% of the vote, is that it's going to be a very close Senate race in Michigan. We don't know yet what will happen, but there's not a blowout there, and it's doing exactly what John was talking about in Arizona. You know, it's splitting very heavy Democrat on the vote by mail, but very heavy Republican, 22 points on voting today.
The Arizona, I just got a report from the Biden campaign, the Arizona vote by mail is outperforming their model by 70,000 votes. They expected 150,000 margin. They got a 220,000 margin.
Okay, let's go to Nate Silver then and take a look at, Nate, let's look at your forecast and show what happens if the state of Arizona red in 2016 goes to blue in 2020.
And again, we're going to give Trump Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, where he's probably the favorite at this point. But again, if Biden wins Arizona, then he's going to shoot up to, I think, around 70-some% here. It's not as important for him as Pennsylvania. It's not a Midwestern state, actually more than that, 75%. But, you know, Trump has to hit, like I said, all his marks, and Arizona is one where he would much prefer to have won.
Okay, Nate Silver, thanks very much. Coming up at 10:15 here in East, we have to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds.
So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now it could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. I feel so. Please stop. When I see
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.